I guess that answers your question.
On behalf of the City Council and the staff of Syracuse City, we'd like to invite welcome you this evening to tonight's City Council business meeting. This public meeting is being held as a hybrid in-person and electronic format in accordance with House Bill 5002 of the Open and Public Meetings Act amendments, signed into law on June 25th of 2020. In-person attendance will be allowed in the Syracuse City Council chamber at 1979 West, 1900 South. In consideration of the COVID pandemic, social distancing and mask wearing is encouraged, but not required. The meeting will be streamed live on the Syracuse City YouTube channel, and public participation will be allowed via Zoom. And that website, for those of you who are maybe joining us through the YouTube channel, can be reached if you go on our website, and that link is posted there. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I've asked Councilwoman Bolduc if she would offer the prayer on this meeting, and then Councilwoman Bingham if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies.
Pray that thou will be with us and be able to make good and sound decisions that will help our residents and the city to prosper. We pray for our money to water our lands and our farms. We pray for relief from this drought. We thank thee for all thou hast blessed us with, and pray that we will help others with what thou hast given us. And this we humbly ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council. Before I ask for a motion to adopt the agenda, it was pointed out to me that we've got two items here switched, and it's important that one come before the other. So, Council, I would like to switch item 14 and 15. If you would allow me to do so. So if you'd mention that in the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the agenda, switching items 14 and 15.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is adopted. We will now open our meeting up to public comment. Cassie, you said you had email for this meeting?
Yeah, I received 6 different emails before the 5 o'clock deadline, so I'll go ahead and read those. The first letter says, Dear Syracuse City Council, we have lived behind the Rush Funplex for 8 years before the addition was built. Before the building was expanded, we heard occasional noise and music, but since the expansion, it has been nonstop. I understand we border commercial property, so there will be noises that you do not have in a purely residential neighborhood. During the daytime, while annoying, it is not as disruptive to our lives. Having constant music and playing in your backyard every time you go outside gets old quickly. The noise and music at night is disruptive to our lives. It disrupts sleep and causes lots of aggravation. We have tried over the years to work this out with the Rush. When we call and ask them to adjust the music, we are told it's on an automatic system and the employees cannot control it. Some of the other things we have been told by the Rush are that the noise ordinance does not apply to them. They believe they are grandfathered in, or they're having a private party that brought their own DJ, so there's nothing they can do about it, or they're closing soon, so it will turn off then. We have also reached out to the police on multiple occasions. The last time we called, it was forwarded to the Davis County Sheriff's Office, and they told us it was a city ordinance issue, so there was nothing they could do about it. It's very frustrating to feel there's nothing you can do and no one you can reach out to when it's late at night and you're losing sleep. We appreciate the efforts of Councilman Jordan Savage. He worked to establish a noise ordinance for our city and has listened to our many complaints. I know you as a city council can't and shouldn't control everything a business does, but the passage of the noise ordinance hasn't changed our situation. It feels like the city has been reluctant to give citations to businesses, and the police do not want to handle it either. Most of the time there is a violation. It is late at night, we as neighbors feel stuck and frustrated. I know and appreciate the value small businesses bring to our community. My kids have enjoyed the many activities the Rush has to offer. I feel that as neighbors, we are not asking for them to have no music or sounds coming from their building. We are just asking for a slight volume reduction, which we believe will have no impact on their business or its operations, but a large impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Sincerely, Philip and June L. Arnoldson. Okay, the second one is from Josh Hughes. He says, Mayor and council members, unfortunately, I cannot be present at tonight's meeting. However, I did want to keep with my resolve of sharing some of the ways I've been impressed with different staff members. Tonight, I want to focus on Paul Roberts. I don't know who hired Paul Roberts, but they deserve a major pat on the back. Based on how much I hear Paul speak during meetings and presentations, it's evident he loves the spotlight. So hopefully this doesn't make him too uncomfortable. I'm reluctant to admit it, but I have rubbed shoulders with quite a few attorneys, so I feel somewhat qualified to say that Paul is exceptional. While I have sometimes wished he answered differently, he does a wonderful job of keeping the city out of trouble. I've personally been involved in a situation where a city attorney advised the city incorrectly and the state auditor's office had to set them straight. I've also been involved in 2 situations where a city attorney steered the cities incorrectly and the state property rights ombudsman had to correct the cities. By following Paul's advice, I doubt you'll ever be led wrong. It is impressive how well Paul knows land use law, which is on top of a myriad of other legal issues that he needs to worry about as city attorney. He always seems to be aware of not only the law, but also of case law that has set precedents in different areas. Paul is accessible, responsive, and efficient. He does a fantastic job while remaining level-headed, consistent, kind, and without ego. Syracuse should do what it takes to keep Paul on the team.
Has it been 3 minutes yet?
Genuinely, Josh Hughes.
We have one celebrity in Syracuse. I didn't know we had two.
Okay, next is from Shanae Perez and family. She says, I understand there is a housing shortage and affordable housing has turned to condos and townhomes. However, I live on 400 South and I am opposed to the development being considered on 1550 West. There is a car wash currently being built, a mortuary, and a school. Traffic is very heavy at times, especially during school hours. The school also contracts out for other events using their amphitheater and their parking lot, cannot accommodate all of the vehicles, so they park up and down 1550 West and 400 South. Just 2 weeks ago, there was an event and vehicles lined 1550 West and 400 South for hours. You can also see from the attached pictures that cars are also parked in red and yellow zones. There are also upwards of 25 to 30 kids that live on 400 South alone. Unlike most kids these days, our kids are outside riding bikes and playing with friends on a regular basis. Please consider rezoning the area on 1550 West, or please consider putting in several safety measures and traffic options that would make sense for the area. I know from a city standpoint, generating revenue for the city is key, but let's not do it at the safety of others and end up paying more over a lawsuit later. Thanks for your time and consideration. And Mayor and Council, I sent you the email, so you have the pictures that she references in her email. Okay, this fourth one is from Emily Fanau. Members of the City Council, residents of Monterey Estates still have concerns with the increased safety hazards that the Abington Park Townhome development will most certainly compound. There was a traffic study done. I was able to sit in on a meeting where the results were discussed, but no hard copy was provided to actually look at. And the Monterey residents haven't been able to see the results, but it doesn't seem complete enough to have thoroughly examined all the current traffic concerns and safety issues in play. The traffic study seemed to work in favor of the development being built, in that the trip counts at the 3 access points showed that the trips that would come from the townhome development at these access points would not be problematic. However, it didn't properly study the speeding issues or street parking visibility problems on 1550 West. Vehicles line 1550 West 30 minutes before school is out and remain parked until children find their respective vehicle. These parked vehicles inhibit visibility for those vehicles needing to turn out of a connecting street, a home, or the school. School children frequently dart in and out of parked vehicles during this time of increased road traffic, causing close calls with residents and other community members picking up children or driving through the neighborhood. There are many children in Monterey Estates who walk home from school, and there are many children who are picked up and live outside of Monterey Estates, resulting in large numbers of people and vehicles during the busiest hours of the school day. Additionally, 1550 West is prone to speeding vehicles, which can not only happen during busy school hours, but during any hour. 1550 West is a long road that runs north to south off the busy State Road 193. It passes by the Arts Academy and into Monterey Estates. Vehicles frequently speed down this road and whip around the corner near the neighborhood park where children play. Children and adults alike have already seen several close calls and have fears about impending accidents should the speeding on 1550 West continue. There is also speeding down 1525 West as some drivers try to bypass 1550 West traffic. There are a number of parents who have their school children walk all the way down 1550 West and pick them up at the park, creating a secondary area of safety concerns and traffic, street parking, and kids crossing the road with no crosswalk. Increased street parking that will most certainly result from the townhome development will further limit visibility, not only during school hours as it does now, but potentially at all hours. Increased traffic from townhome residents also means increased speeders. One of the best solutions would be to have a parking overflow area for the new townhomes. I have asked about using the detention area for overflow parking, but have been told it is not possible. It has been suggested to look into the possibility of coming up with some kind of parking access agreement with the mortuary across the street. Another option to look into would be to get the seller to amend the contract and provide additional land for overflow parking. Our solutions as residents remain and have been added to. Overflow parking area for townhome residents as seen in the Woodside Stillwater development. Access road that connects 1550 West with 2000 West. This will more effectively funnel the increased traffic from the townhomes out of Monterey Estates and the Arts Academy. Painting the curb red on the west side of 1550 West along the townhome development will prevent additional street parking, which limits visibility for those coming out of homes and side streets. A flashing speed limit sign on 1550 West will be more effective at slowing speeders on 1525 West. The addition of crosswalks and crossing guards, especially near the school, changing the lanes at the intersection of 1550 West and 193 at the light from a left turn and a straight right turn lane to a left turn lane, a straight traffic lane, and a right turn lane. Apparently, this is something to take to UDOT. There has been discussion at 2 of the previous city work meetings that because there is a jog in 1550 West, not a straight shot, speeders will slow naturally. This has not proven to be the case so far. It has also brought up that if townhome residents park on 1550 West, it will not be problematic because the road is wider, and studies have shown that parked cars and built structures on both sides of the street will naturally slow speeders. But that really remains to be seen as 1550 West is a long road and speeding is already happening on the south end of 1550 West, where there are built structures on both sides of the street. Additionally, parked cars on 1550 West inhibit visibility, and there have been numerous close calls when trying to pull out from a home or from a side street when cars are parked along 1550 West. We have not ever argued against the development, but have approached you with solutions that will not only make current problems better, but will help to rectify the impending compounding of these problems. While I have certainly been grateful to be part of the discussions and for the opportunity to represent Monterey Estates, it has been somewhat unsettling that as the discussions have progressed in city work meetings and other conversations, they went from the developer telling us they would pay for all of our traffic safety solutions to telling us that whatever measures are implemented will depend on the results of the traffic study, to hearing that the traffic study, which I don't think was complete enough, and other studies indicate that we might not need any of our suggested safety measures. I've been in touch with the residents of Monterey Estates, and I have tried to accurately represent their concerns. The Monterey Estates residents would like to get a commitment on the record which of the above items will be implemented and who will pay for them, the city or the developer. Sincerely, Emily Fennell. I need to add some people into the meeting, Mayor. Okay, this letter is from Summerlin G. I am a resident of the Monterey Estates community in Syracuse, and I would like the following comment recorded at the council meeting. A significant portion of the Monterey Estates community, comprising of 125 individuals, along with their families, have expressed detailed written concerns with the traffic safety surrounding the proposed Abington development. A letter was drafted by Mrs. Emily Fennell that included multiple potential courses of action. Our mayor then invited Ms. Fennell to join ongoing discussions between law enforcement officials, the city engineer, the director of planning and development, and this council. Ms. Fennell has served well as a liaison by seeking continued input from Monterey Estates residents and promptly informing us of the results of these discussions. I was hopeful when Ms. Fennell was invited to represent our community, but I do not feel that true representation is possible until she has been fully informed. I was concerned to hear that Ms. Fanow has not been provided with access to the results of the traffic study that was recently conducted in our neighborhood. If Ms. Fanow is valued by the council as a participant in these continued discussions, she should have been afforded adequate notice to review and communicate the results of the study to residents. This would allow her to collect additional feedback from Monterey Estates residents who have already provided multiple viable solutions and may yet provide many more. When 125 people join together under a common cause, big ideas result. As Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. I am saddened that this opportunity for additional collaboration is being overlooked. I feel that this vote is premature. A vote tonight would signal that you don't intend to address the safety concerns of your constituents regarding or residing in the Monterey Estates community, and that you aren't interested in our continued participation and input. Please consider postponing your vote, and please provide Ms. Fanow with access to the results of the traffic study so that she may continue to liaise with residents. Thank you. Again, that's Summerlin G. And this final letter is from Chelsea Robinson. I'm a resident in the Monterey Estates subdivision. I live on the east side of 450 South. During the school year, I don't even attempt to use the west exit of my street onto 1550 West, as there are too many cars that line the road, and I am not able to see cars that are headed northbound towards I-193. Parking and crowding from school drop-off and pickup make using 1550 West difficult. I also have experience being a crossing guard. I know for a fact that even when I have my stop sign raised and I'm entering the road, cars will not slow down or stop for me. I have on several occasions also had kids not want to cross where I am and will hide behind cars and dart out other places when I try and cross them. I personally believe that by putting in blinking crosswalk signs, it would be beneficial to 1550 West to help vehicles and children cross safely with a crossing guard. I also have been witness to multiple cars speeding down that road at all points and believe speed limit signs that display driver speeds would be beneficial. Thank you for your time, Chelsea Robinson.
Thank you, Cassie. Now let me go to those that are joining us through Zoom. If any of you would like to comment to the City Council, we'd love to hear from you. If you would state your name and place of residence, and we'll offer you 3 minutes.
With the note that if they already submitted a letter.
Yes, if you've already submitted a letter, we'll take that comment because that's now part of the written record. Cassie, do you see any hands?
No, I don't see anyone raising their hands.
Okay, now let me come here in council chambers. Any of you would like to address the council? Would you come forward and state your name and place of residence? And again, we'll offer you up to 3 minutes.
My name is Laura Streeter, and I reside at 1857 South, 2150 West here in Syracuse. Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Gailey. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak to you tonight regarding residential issues with the Rush Funplex violating the noise ordinance. I attended planning meetings and City Council meetings before the Rush extension was added on and voiced my concerns, mostly regarding noise, and nothing was done. Noise has been a problem from the beginning, and we have made countless calls to the Rush and have reached a point now that when we call, we are met with belligerence. It has been almost a decade of noise, except for the most divine year of silence of 2020. Police have been unhelpful, as we have been told it is a code issue and must be taken up with code enforcement. I ask, how do we do that at 11 p.m. at night? When the Rush hosts private parties and DJs are brought in, we have been told by the Rush ownership that they cannot do anything as it is not their DJ, yet they are hosting the party in their facility. I and my children are being kept awake at night because of the noise. Mr. Gerch, the owner of the Rush, claims he cannot control the noise and that the bass is the only problem. It is so much more than the bass. When we call and complain, they sometimes send someone outside to listen, and that's it. The current noise ordinance, while written with good intent, has not been enforced. Subsection 6.40.040 contains a table outlining acceptable noise levels for different zoning areas, with the rule being that when two different zones meet, the more restrictive level is enforced. The general rule is daytime levels are not to exceed 60 decibels and nighttime levels are not to exceed 50 decibels. In a discussion on May 28, 2021, following a previous night's grad party with noise levels exceeding legal limits until at least 2 a.m., questions were asked of Mr. Gerch. When asked if he knew the legal limit, Mr. Gerch's response, no. When informed it is 50 decibels after 10 p.m., because it was a Thursday night, Mr. Gerch's response, I have no idea what that means. When informed, I gathered data that measured the sound at 11:30 p.m. 75 decibels. Mr. Gertch's response, your measurement tool must be wrong. Mr. Gertch also falsely believes he has been grandfathered into the ordinance since the business was there before the ordinance. I know that is incorrect due to the ordinance being a nuisance ordinance and not a land use ordinance. What else do residents need to do? We have called the rush directly. We have called the police. We have provided data and evidence. What else is needed to enforce the code? All in all, I and surrounding residents plead and urge the City Council to take action. Who is willing to fight our corner? Let's put some teeth in this noise ordinance once and for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the council?
Mayor, we did have a Zoom participant raise her hand.
Okay,
Brittany Thurston.
okay, Brittany?
Hi, I sent an email to the mayor and the city council members, but I just wanted it to be on record. I didn't send it to Cassie, as I probably should have, just my email, echoing the concerns from the Monterey Estates neighborhood. I am on the HOA board, and so as a board, I've been asked to, along with Emily, voice our concerns as a neighborhood with the traffic and the congestion and the safety concerns. And Emily outlined it very well. And I'm sure you've heard with my email and other people, but I just wanted my voice to be on the record as well, that I would prefer we hold off. And as it was discussed in the May meeting, to table the decision to rezone until we know a little bit more about what will be developed in that area, so that we're more thoughtful and intentional about how the land is developed. So on the record, I would like, please vote no for the rezoning of 1550. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Cole?
Yes, this is Cole Crusade, resident Monterey Estates, living on 1550. Probably just going to be another echoing person, but I wanted to voice just again concern, mainly again with, I know a lot of people always just keep harping on the school traffic, but I think in general, for sure, I think this is a main thoroughway just because of the, I know personally myself that on, the main road down there that has the lights take too long. So a lot of people like to zoom through this main road because it's the closest through road instead of 2000 West. So again, this being a very already busy through street, if we can get the support from the city to at least get something to enforce a little bit more speed. And then as the future grows, just more safety concerns. Again, I have 3 children also that live on this road. So it really does hit home to me and the safety of my children. So just wanted to voice that, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, Cole. Anyone else here or on Zoom? Okay, we'll close public comment. There'll be an opportunity at the end of this meeting to reopen discussion items that have been stimulated through the discussion that's happened tonight. This evening, we will be discussing the Abington development. So stay tuned because that is yet to come. Brody, I wonder if with the noise issue, if we could maybe do some work with the rush and with maybe residents and see if we can't find some solution to that. Okay. All right. We've begun asking Robert at every city council meeting until the drought abates or the water's turned off or whatever solution. God finally answers our prayers. At every one of our meetings, he's going to give us an update on the drought situation. So Robert, would you step forward and talk to us about the drought?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I wish I had great news to bring you, but I am going to just report on what the condition is. Our reservoirs and tank are draining quickly, and it's been extremely difficult to keep those full and supplied. One of the days that we were really interested in collecting data was Sunday, mainly because it it was declared as a no watering day, not just last Sunday, but every Sunday. And the reason for that is just so we can fill the reservoirs with the low streams that are coming in, serving them, and begin the week with a full tank, with full reservoirs, so that we can try to survive through this summer. So the status of that, it was obvious there was still a lot of water use. I don't have any evidence other than what the pump run times were. On a typical rainy day, say if we had say a couple of years ago, if you can remember back when we had rain, that lasted, say, for a duration of 24 hours or more. People are very good about turning off their sprinklers, and we see out of the 12 large pumps that we have, usually there's 1.5 pumps equivalent that's pumping 24 hours. And that's just to sustain pressures, and there's an occasional water that's on user. But so on Sunday, we were kind of expecting something similar to that. Turned out there was 3.5 pumps that were running. So, I believe there absolutely were people who were following, and I also believe that there probably were people who maybe were still unaware. However, I think as time goes along, we can continue to educate. We have been enforcing for a week. It started Wednesday, so we've had a full 7 days. Out of that, we have delivered just warnings at this point. There's been about 240 of them. There could have been more. I'm limited by staffing, right? So that average is about 34 notices a day. I definitely don't want to get to where we're fining people, but I also don't want to make it more difficult on the city as a whole as far as having water. It is already difficult. I know I have limited time. I do want to share with you a graph that I put together that gives a really great picture that I can update weekly if you'd like. And I just want to show you it here and see what you think of it. Let's share. I'm sorry, I don't share too often. What is it? Someone
Ask you if you allowed him to share.
Should be a share screen at the bottom.
share screen. Start, I guess. And it didn't give me the option. Yeah. I was hoping to do a test of this before, but
Once you share it, you have to minimize the app.
I just share up here. And I did screen. And then start. But it doesn't give me a choose. Oh, there we go. Right here. There we go. Oh, that's better. Sorry about that. So I put this graph together. It is current as of today, showing, so it shows on the y-axis, the vertical is the billions of gallons. That sounds like an awful lot of water when you're talking billions of gallons. We typically talk acre feet, but I think a lot of people understand gallons. So in 2020, we had about 3.5 billion gallons for the whole year that was actually used. Now, 2021, if there was no drought, we would have that same amount of water plus whatever water was added through growth. So we take that allotment and the drought reduction just this is based on the fact that Echo and East Canyon and all of the reservoirs that feed the Weber River are only about half full. So our allotment, and this isn't just Syracuse City that got a drought reduction. This is everyone that feeds off of Weber River got a drought reduction. So ours, we turned out about 50%, so just less than 2 billion gallons for our allotment. And then the last bar on the right shows the actual use as of today. And each week I can update this to show what the actual use is. So we're just under 500 million. This is 20%. So we've used 20% of our allotment for the year so far. So 1/5. That's where things are at right now. Now I can ramp it up and ask for more water, but that will end up sacrificing at the end of the year for us if that's what we want to do. I'm unable to maintain pressures in the system because we don't have the water to fill the tank. On Sunday night, the tank was actually zero. It was completely empty and reservoirs were draining. The reservoirs began to build about midday Sunday, not full, but in order to start out Monday with full pressures, we had to empty all of our reservoirs to fill that tank. So we had a full tank, but empty reservoirs. So they work very opposite of each other. But that's not a good situation anyway. We need both. We need water for both the reservoirs and the tank to maintain full pressure and deliver water. So like I say, if we want full pressure, we would have to use the water that we would reserve, say like in September, and go. I don't know if it would give us full pressure all the time, but it would be better than now. Or, well, and the other consideration is we have to realize farmers are also on the same ditch and they rely on water for their fields too, which is frankly more important than our lawns and gardens. So, but that's the status of things right now. So if you like this graphic, I can continue to update it and maybe send it out to you or show it at council meetings. Is this something you like?
Yes, but
One thing I'd like to see is, can you add a projection based on our current rates? What would happen if we don't cut back? I mean, I'm assuming you're rationing, and that's why. So theoretically, if we ration as we are, we're fine for the entire year. But there will be many days where people are not going to be able to water at all.
Right.
but
Right.
based on what you're saying right now, at our current consumption rate, we will be out of water by January or July 20th.
No, he's rationing. That's
Okay,
what I was saying.
I hear that, but
Projection.
if what you said is we've used 1/5 of our water
Mhm.
in the amount of time, if I project that forward, we're going to be out of water before July's over. So, I mean, I realize we can control that and throttle that, but at this rate, that's what you're saying.
Right.
I do
I-
think you're right about having an information issue with the city. What can we do to get the information, especially about Sundays, to not use anything? I mean, that's kind of something you have to seek out. And so I'm wondering if we can do a little bit stronger information campaign, especially since just watching the news coverage with you where you said 2 nights to water twice a week. I wasn't even aware that we had gone to twice a week. I knew I was withholding on Fridays and Sundays. So I just wonder if we can do some kind of an information campaign. I think we'll have more people
Yeah.
willing.
The hard part is we've sent a letter to every single home in the city. We put it in the magazine, we put it on Facebook, and I decided, just out of curiosity, on Sunday night, and my wife went for a couple-mile walk around the neighborhood, and I ran out of fingers with how many homes were still watering on Sunday night at about 8 o'clock. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how else we get the word out as the issue unless we are going to start going door to door and hanging things on there. I guess you're already putting,
yeah.
how are you doing the
So
notices?
the notices are helping, you know, it's not making people happy, but it's at least giving information. And the nice thing is the first time is it's just a warning, mainly because we want to inform people so
Right.
they can be a little more aware. And a lot of times they call and we're able to educate that at that time. And that's been good. Another is we're looking at ramping up some of our social media campaigns and images, making it very simple. Lisa made a really great point is I think there's a potential for a confusion in the message that making people believe that they can water 5 days out of the week, and that's not the case. It's just pick 2 days out of the 5 that are available and water those 2 days or less if you don't need 2 days.
Along with that, you've
So-
also asked people in quadrants of the city to not water on specific days. So at any given time, you only have 3/4 of the city trying to water the lawn as opposed to the whole thing.
Right, and out of those 3/4, there's only a potential of 1/5, right? Or I guess 2/5, 2 days out of 5 that could be used for water. So there's kind of a low percentage as far as math goes, right? If everything is perfect, we should be able to pull through, but it really will require everybody doing their part, and a lot of it absolutely is information getting out. Like I mentioned, Brody and I have been talking about how to ramp up some of that on a social media and the city website and doing what we can there. A lot of times that gets information out quickly and
So I think one of our challenges is message fatigue, though, and I see a lot of individuals are just tired of hearing the same thing. I know that's not appropriate, or it's not fair to say that they're tired of it because we're tired of drought, and we can't fix that. But the other message that we're getting a lot of is, what are we doing for like the large businesses that are continuing to violate, and including, unfortunately, our churches and then some of the parks. And we know there's answers for that, but that message needs to somehow be translated to our citizens, because that's really a tough thing to say, do as we say, not as we do. But they're not quite, it's not accurate, obviously, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, how well are we attending to some of those big facilities?
Yeah. That's a great question. So when we're out doing enforcement, it's not easy just to hang a door hanger on a business door or even on a common area of an HOA, for instance, and so we still document it. It still gets documented, and our admin staff tracks down the owner of the property or who is responsible. And oftentimes, honestly, it's difficult to find, particularly HOAs, but we do our best to.
The other thing I think is I'm kind of a lead with a carrot more than a stick, if we can. And so I think if we can think of innovative strategies to be positive about this, because it's all the messaging is just pretty much doomsday, which it is, in many cases, unfortunately. But, if there's any way we can figure out how to be positive or incentivize individuals. We've had a lot of information come forward about, have we thought about our ordinance, or have we thought about what we would do around, 4th of July? And there's just lots of things out there. A lot of people are promoting strategies and solutions. Are we listening?
I'm still of the opinion that I've brought up in other council meetings that we ought to give people the opportunity to zero-scape yards.
Yes.
I think that is a good strategy, and we've talked about how to make sure they're not using secondary water for the rest of the yard. And I think we install meters at those homes. We know we have to do it anyway by 2040. We just prioritize. We let people that want to start zero-scaping or something like that, I think we give them that opportunity. And I do think we can incentivize it by certain homes might, if you're willing to have us put a meter in and make sure that the secondary water is not being used, we remove that fee from that. And I know we have pipes to maintain and all of that. I don't think we're going to have 1,000 people in the city suddenly decide to zero-scape their yard, but you might get 100, you might get 50. And at that point, that's 50 less users that we can now spread those water shares a little bit more over those remaining people. There's a lot of innovative strategies for xeriscaping most strips. I know that makes some of the maintenance more difficult, but I think we ought to be promoting these strategies. And I do think if we can figure out a way to incentivize it, I think we probably should. I think that's the way to keep us healthy out from a waterfront for the foreseeable future.
Maybe a possibility would be a dramatically reduced fee, so that we can still maintain what we
Something
need.
like that. I'm okay if it ends up being that, because like I said, that the hookup is still there, so I can get on board with that. But I do think that there are reasons to motivate people, and the best motivation for almost anybody is having that wallet just a little bit thicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly in your realm. I do want to mention there's grants that are available out there too for metering, for installing meters. And that's
So,
something we've talked about.
One of my big concerns where I was going with this earlier, when we talk about if we use our water too fast, if our system doesn't have enough water to work, then we have people even more frustrated. If we can't get enough pressure that the water goes anywhere beyond a few inches from the sprinkler, then we may have water for longer, but nobody's getting the benefit of having that water because there's not enough pressure to deliver it. So I'm really concerned as we go into the summer that if we continue to use this at a pace that's crazy, even throttling it, we're just making it so that nobody's happy with the result, and that's our responsibility.
So I guess at that point, the only thing we can really do is really buckle down on enforcement and put more teeth in it, because the water is what it is. We don't get more water. The only thing you can do is regulate how it's used.
How tough is it to charge the system, and what effect does it have on the system to turn it off?
If we were to turn it off for, say, a day or a week or whatever, well, first of all, it'd be labor intensive to turn off valves, right? We could literally empty the system, I suppose. The risk is if there is water and then air in a line and then water behind it, it actually causes an airlock in the pipe. And then you can put more water in the pipe all you want, but you won't be able, because of that airlock, you'd have to open all the drains, both ends, like a straw, right, to let it go.
It's not my area of expertise. But my question was, was leading to if it was able to be turned off so that it could fully charge to deliver pressure, and then turned off so that it couldn't siphon the system down to where it won't charge.
You're saying
so
shut the valve.
City, shut it off.
The simple answer, there isn't a way to do that.
But you can't do that. All right. Well, it's again, not my area of expertise, but at least a question worth asking.
Sure.
Nice try, Dave. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It would have actually charged.
If you could make it work, that would be a great idea.
It would be nice.
Apparently that's not.
I don't have that ability.
Council, this was intended to be a 5-minute update.
I know. I know.
Drought is.
The answer comes from the sky. So maybe we ought to ask, for it.
Obviously, if you have any questions or want discussion or answers, I know you're getting bombarded with questions. Please just call me, text me, feel free anytime. Okay. And I'm happy to give you information or take you out to places.
Robert, is it also your intent to do this at Planning Commission too?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. Yep.
So that,
we talked about it.
Can you do that so that more than twice a month we're getting maybe some report every week?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Mayor, it sounds like there's a lot of discussion to be had. Maybe at the work session, we can have it as a discussion.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, Council, we're at item 4, a possible reconsideration of the May 11th, 2001 vote to authorize the execution of the fiber communication and acquisition contract with Utah Infrastructure Agency, Utopia. Brody, do you want to lead us out with this?
Sure. As you know, on May 11th, the council approved a contract with Utopia for fiber services. There was discussion at the previous work session of a possible alternative. What this is on the agenda for is if there is enough interest to reconsider that. There is still technically some time left to do that. You didn't have to have it on the agenda. You can reconsider a vote, that you've done in the previous meeting before adopting the minutes. But in the interest of making sure everybody knew about it, we put it on the agenda so that it's there and it's visible. So it's up to you to decide if there's any discussion on that or not.
Jordan, you've done a lot of research in this and done a lot of follow-up. Can you lead us out with this one?
Sure, it was supposed to be Councilmember Bingham.
I know, but you've done the research. So.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of, I really wanted to figure out what the right answer was here. I know we've had some surrounding cities go with a different company, and I actually got a lot of favorable feedback from a lot of those people, so I decided rather than just take everybody's word for it, I went through and I've talked with the business owners of all of these. I have reached out to several of some of the providers, and that's really where I wanted to get a lot of my information from, simply because it's the especially one of the providers he wins no matter what, his company, because he would be on either network, and so his was probably the least biased opinion that I received. And so I talked through each of the networks, each of the technologies. I've taken tours of several of these facilities for both companies, or at least I've seen pictures of some, and the other ones I actually have received tours. And the alternative that we had presented to us, while I think will be promising, I still think they're new enough. They've been putting in fiber since February. They've been doing some ISP services and different internet services for a little bit longer than that, but I still feel like they're a little bit new. And my job as a city council member is to make sure that the city gets the best product to as many people as possible. So with that in mind, after having done all this research, I would like to reiterate my support for our previous vote and not reconsider.
Could you answer a question for me? I was not able to go with you to West Point yesterday.
Sure.
And look at the Utopia's furthest outreaching. What did you discover there?
So what I discovered as we got out there, the facilities were identical to the others we saw. That there was not a decrease in support. They didn't have as much battery backup at those outer facilities, simply because they didn't have as many customers there. It wasn't as much of a power draw. One of the things that I thought was actually pretty awesome that I spoke with Utopia about is that I didn't know about is they are actually adding some public services into some of these buildings, because they understand they're an eyesore and they want to add some additional value. So I don't know if you guys saw the email today. Utopia is committed to not only doing the internet, but in addition to that, they will be providing wireless internet in the parks, at least surrounding the building in the parks that have these facilities, and we have the opportunity to expand that. Also, they'll be putting in air quality sensors on each of these buildings that we can use for public safety. We can access that data and see if we have different areas of the city that have problematic air. And they also committed to putting on weather stations. What got me interested in that is, especially where we have some windstorms come through, if we have one area of the city that gets, say, 80 miles an hour wind, and we have other cities that get 30, based on that data, we now have an idea of how to better deploy our public safety officers and our first responders to respond to emergencies. And so there's some additional public service there that I think would be an asset to the community. But like I said, they had, as near as I could tell, they had run fiber to the one where I was literally a park in the middle of a field. There were horses right there, and this was truly at the end of the road. And it was a fully functional fiber optic facility that looks like they have fulfilled their commitment. And that's really what I'm after. I think the other company will do a great job. but I still think they're a little bit new, and I just like the idea of having a good, stable product for the city of Syracuse.
Dave, you were interested in making sure that we had blanket coverage for the city. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, my evaluation is that this is a stronger option than the one that was proposed. If it were as developed, I would be equally as interested. But the claims that were first made were backed off considerably when we were in person, and that concerns me that it wasn't as fleshed out as we needed.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to pursue further reconsideration of that motion? Okay. All right. I'm going to table this agenda for a call for a minute approval. So thank you. We're at item 5, approval of the minutes of April 27th and May 11th. Like a motion?
Mayor, I make the motion that we accept the minutes or approve the minutes for April 7th, 2021 work session and May 11th, 2021 business.
Thank you, Corinne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as 100%? Fire chief. Have you gotten petrified sitting there?
We're good.
We're good. You? Joe, you come join him, will you?
Yeah, we're going to bring Joe up too. First off, Council Mayor, thanks for giving me the opportunity to bring a small army with me tonight. We've had a busy year with some staffing changes, and where this is only the second meeting now that we've been able to meet in person, I wanted to kind of rewind and go back a little bit and introduce you to some of our new firefighters, new full-time firefighters. Some are old faces, some are new faces. And then also to introduce you to our new engineer who replaced the outgoing Brad Mills with his retirement. So with that, I'm going to read their names off and just a little bit about them. I'll have them come up. We'll have Cassie administer the oath of office, and then we'll have somebody from their family or somebody they've asked to pin their badge on them. So first off is firefighter AMT Kobe Purser. He was hired full-time in September of 2020. He's been employed by Syracuse City as a part-time firefighter since November 1999. The next one is firefighter paramedic Shaylin McGuire. She was also hired in September of 2020. She's been employed by Syracuse City as a part-time firefighter since May of 2017, and she's also a recent paramedic graduate from UVU. We have firefighter advanced EMT Javen Innes. He was hired May of 2021. He's new to Syracuse Fire Department. However, he brings over 4 years of experience working with Gold Cross Ambulance in Salt Lake City. We've got firefighter paramedic Brock Minhondo, hired in June of 2021. He's a resident of Syracuse. He previously worked as a part-time firefighter with our department, and he brings over 5 years of experience from Roy City Fire Department. And then we also have newly promoted engineer advanced EMT Colt Cottrell. He was promoted April of 2021, and he is a resident of Syracuse. He's been employed by Syracuse City since September of 2007. So we'll have Cassie, if you wouldn't mind doing that, and then we'll have the family members come up. And you want to just put them around here, or how do you want to?
Yeah, that's great. And I'll just do it all. I'll get some great things.
Good.
Okay, would you just raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Colt Cottrell,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of Utah,
the Constitution of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Awesome. Okay, could we have family members or we've had come up and pin badges, and we'll get those on, and then we'll let you move on with your meeting. That won't be Shay's.
They're all straight pins, right? Just
Yeah, yeah, the old,
I have some blood on the floor.
we'll get started. You want to get Colt? We're going to one at a time so I can grab a picture, and then we'll start with Colt.
We're okay with letting the audience see them get their
Yeah,
stuff.
you guys wanna-
Let's get some good pictures.
Yeah, let's do that. You got Shay? Let me get out of your way, Chief. Awesome. Congratulations, Shay. Thank you.
Maybe, huh?
No, ouch.
Luckily, they all know first aid.
I'll do it. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. We're very proud of our fire department. Council, we're at item 7, the consent agenda. Item A is the authorization of administration to execute consulting agreement with Corbin Design for development of a sign plan. Item B, authorization of administration to execute interlocal agreement with Clinton and Sunset Cities for victim advocate services. And item C, authorize administration to execute amended interlocal agreement with Davis County for paramedic services. Have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we authorize consent agenda items A, B, and C as read.
Thank you, Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jordan. Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, that was unanimous. These next 2 items are mine. I would like to ask you to support a resolution R2119 appointing Brigham Young, it's an interesting name, huh? In this valley, and Lisa Schwartz to the Disaster Preparedness Committee. And Brigham, are you or Lisa on Zoom? I don't see them here. Don't see them on their Zoom anyway. It's not necessary that they be here. I'd entertain a motion to make that resolution binding.
Mr. Mayor, I make that resolution.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jordan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that one as unanimous? And R2120 appointing Ryan Snar to the Syracuse City Architectural Review Committee. And I think Noah was telling me that Ryan couldn't be here.
So he was here earlier, I believe, but
Was he?
I've seen him
Did he
leave.
Did he leave? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion as well.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You know,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I did talk to, I coach with, I coach his daughter, or assist with helping out coach Ryan's daughter. And one thing that came forward when he was talking about this position was he was very interested in figuring out how to make the clock tower better. So I
Yeah,
think he's
Yay!
He's
he should
perfect.
be supported for sure. Hallelujah.
He's perfect.
He's the guy.
That's great.
How many people do we need to get in favor of this? Is there a number?
We need somebody out there to save the clock tower.
Yeah.
I know.
What we,
Enough of fun. He's the fix the
what we need is a movie called Back to the Future.
Yay, you got it.
You know what? We could have a movie night where we play that and everybody
And
pays
raise
for
money.
Raise money.
pays tickets, and that'll be to save the
I-
Syracuse clock.
I think that legally you have to pay a fee to pay to raise money of any kind with the movie being shown. But okay, we could try.
I want to know who's the crazy professor. I vote for Paul.
Okay.
Doc Brown.
Okay, let's move on. Brody, let's talk about a proposed resolution R2121 adopting the tentative budget as an operating budget for fiscal year 2021 through 2022. Could you lead us through that discussion, and then we'll open that to public hearing?
Sure. No change since the work session, but what you're voting on tonight is adopting the tentative budget that was advertised, and setting the truth in taxation hearing for the tax increase of $486,000 to fund paramedic program and benchmark adjustments for positions that have fallen greater than 5% behind the market. And there's 36,000 associated with that. So as part of this motion, what we want to make sure we understand from a staff perspective is adopting the budget now. So beginning July 1, we want to make sure we're on the same page that we're okay to move forward with everything else in the budget, except for those items that are under consideration for the increased tax rate. If you have a different, opinion on that or a different desire on that, I should say, please let us know. Otherwise, we can move forward with those. And we've gone through the details several times. I'm not going to do that again unless you want me to.
Probably the only thing that's new information is the TNT hearing will be August 10th.
So we just received word from Davis County. There's a couple of issues with August 10th. There's actually a few entities that wanted to do August 10th, but it's also going to be the night of the primary for the election. So we were thinking that may be a little disruptive to do both on the same night. You can do them both on the same night, but they did say that August 17th is available, so the following Tuesday. If the council would like to do that, we would just have to make that in the motion.
Okay.
That'd be like a special session then?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a normal session.
Right, special business meeting.
Council, how do you feel about the 17th?
The only issue I have with that is people aren't expecting it. It almost feels like you're like, I know we're not, but it feels like we're doing a special meeting that's outside of the regular meeting agenda that could be construed as trying to.
But if they're sharing that the election's occurring and we have enough time, don't you think we would be able to publish that with the understanding that we're giving them more opportunity to be vocalized? You know what I mean? I feel like it gives them
And it's coming after rather than before the original date, I think.
I agree with you, Jordan, but I just think that we can kind of overcome that with more.
Well, the other item, I feel like pushing it to after the election kind of almost seems like we'll see if these people vote or don't vote for this. And so again, the appearance, I would prefer to keep it on the 10th.
Oh, I see. So you're wanting to were you do it before?
I'm okay with before as well.
Is that a possibility, Brody?
You have to do it at a work session.
Well, no, we would
you do
we
it-
would advertise a special business meeting no matter what night we're doing it on. There was an option to also do August 3rd. Let me hurry and pull up the list from the county.
So do it the week before our regular meeting.
I'm okay with that if that's available.
During planning commission.
Actually, I'd have to take that back. you're able to hold the hearing any day except for August 3rd because the school district is holding their hearing that night. So we could select any day, but really anything different than a Tuesday night would seem to be off of our regular schedule. And yeah, I shared the same concern that Councilmember Savage shared, just going away from our normal meeting schedule, especially on the night of a budget hearing and taxation hearing. I think that might be more disruptive than holding a meeting on election day. So even if there was a way to just say that's the only item that's going to be on your agenda on August 10th, so that you're, try to be done before 8:30 when election results start to come in. I don't have concerns about the meeting limiting people's ability to vote, just because we're obviously doing a vote by mail election and they'll have a lot of time to submit their ballot. So I kind of tend to lean towards what Councilmember Savage was saying.
Let me start down here with Seth. Seth, what's your feeling?
I mean, yeah, I definitely want it to be whatever gives individuals the most opportunity to feel that they've had their opportunity to speak up and have their voice heard. And if it doesn't, I mean, from our recorder's perspective, if it doesn't necessarily pose a threat to the opportunity to vote, then that would work.
David?
I say we leave it.
What are you suggesting would be disruptive then? When you said to have the two together, it would be disruptive. Is it just more, is it more work? Is it going to
Just
dissuade people?
Just if we're still in the meeting and election results start coming in and they're, it's kind of a distraction, maybe people check out of the meeting a little bit early. I don't know.
Okay.
But like I said, if we were to limit the agenda to just very few items, even if it was just the public hearing for the budget and the tax rate, we could do that.
I think that's a good plan. I just worried that it would be double work for you and that you wouldn't be able to take care of both sides. But if you feel like that's something we can compensate for, then I think keep it on the same night.
Yeah.
Okay. Gordon, we know you're in.
I would say let's do it on the 10th. And I think that keeping it a short agenda is what the state desires for us to do on that night anyway.
Those are my favorite kind.
Okay.
I mean, that's what they've tried to ask us to do on those. So thank you.
Okay, Council, we're back to item number 9. Then we need a motion to adopt the tentative budget as the operating budget for fiscal year 21-22.
So moved.
I have a motion by Corinne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Brody, this is Brody's night. It's shine.
It's great.
Proposed resolution R2122 adopting updates to the fiscal year 2001-2022 wage scale.
Thank you. So yeah, this would be the updated wage scale. There's no changes from the work session. We did have some discussion regarding the paramedic pay differential at the work session. And we have some ideas on how we could probably handle that in a way that's easier to budget for. But as far as paying paramedics, we've done some research, and we'd be very uncompetitive if we don't just make it their new wage. All the other cities that have paramedics now and that are hiring paramedics will pay the paramedic wage whenever they're at work, not just when they're working as a paramedic.
But what you're saying is you believe that we can work with that in the budget.
Yeah, so budgetarily, from a policy perspective, what we would do is if somebody gets their paramedic license during the year, they wouldn't start that differential until the upcoming July 1 budget year. So we have time to actually put it in the budget, in the upcoming budget. So if somebody gets their license in September, that they go through school, they get their license, and then come July 1, they would start the new differential.
Thank you for looking into that. That really helps us make this decision better.
Mm-hmm. And I also, I saw that the county is now looking to pay the difference then on that paramedic on this changeover. Does that affect anything to do with our paramedic fees or anything? Will we? Nope. They won't take care of that fee. That'll be ours, or their wages, I mean.
The county will be covering their own wages during the transition year, so we won't have to.
Okay.
We're not paying that transition period.
Yeah, we're not going to pay the
That's
county
great.
during that transition.
Okay, are we good? Can we make a motion here?
I move that we approve resolution R2122 adopting the updates to fiscal year 2021-22 wage scale.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? Let's
Just-
go to,
Mike,
yes.
did we, just a technical standpoint, did we hold a public hearing for the last item?
We did.
Question.
For the budget?
Yeah, did you open the public hearing for the?
Yes, yes, we did. Or if not, let's open it now.
Yeah, I don't think we did. Yeah.
I think you opened it, but I don't know that you asked for any public input
Yeah.
yet.
Okay.
Well, we're in public hearing. If anybody has any input on the adopting the tentative budget as our operating budget, would you meld yourself with me? I'm looking here in the chambers. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you for keeping me straight. Without my wife here, that's needed. We're item 14. Brody, this is yours too.
Are we?
Wait, we're back to 11.
Are we back to 11?
Yes.
Okay, I got so much ink on here, I couldn't see the 11. Okay. 2123.
Okay. This is a required resolution for Utah retirement system. This is the contractual obligation for the employee retirement system. The rates depending on the system that they're in. So that's included in your packet on what that is, and we just need to adopt it.
Lisa, do you want to lead us here?
Yes. So we've discussed so many of these things so many times. I think I support this.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you
Should we
record?
have a motion on that?
Oh, we didn't move. We didn't move. I move that we adopt proposed resolution R2123 authorizing and directing the participation rates of Syracuse City in the public employees retirement system and the public safety retirement system for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
Any opposed? Cassie, will you now record that? I've got Brody's name so many times down here, I'm just absolutely frustrated. Okay. We're at item 12, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Public hearing. Proposed resolution 2125 adjusting the Syracuse City budget for fiscal year ending June 30th. And by the way, Steve is out of town this week, so that's why Brody's got all this.
That's why you've actually got the B team here handling this. So I apologize for if it's a little clumsy.
Joke on your name because you're BB.
The BB team, the double B team.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So this is an adjustment to the current year budget. We discussed most of these items in a previous work session. There is one item that we've added that we'd like to cover tonight, if that's okay. I'll just focus on that one item.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, this is regarding the drought.
Right. So as this drought plays out and as our water situation plays out, we're proposing to the council that this is maybe a good time for the city to kind of walk the walk and show some leadership in trying to do something to curb the use of water by converting some of our existing turf into a low water landscape. We're fortunate enough to be in a situation at the end of the fiscal year where we do have some surplus projected. And so if we do have some cash available, but we're in a drought, maybe we take advantage. If there is a year to do it, maybe this is the year to take some property that the city owns and convert it to a low water use. I'm going to quickly share. Can I share my screen? Yeah. I'll share my screen here and kind of walk through this. Okay, so we've just kind of, this is a real high level. We don't have to decide exactly what properties we want to focus on as part of this motion. But what we're asking tonight as part of this motion, if you want to designate some of the projected surplus to go towards turf conversion, we would set aside that money in the capital fund to be spent next year. Okay. So this is just kind of a cursory look at some of the city properties of where turf that is, marginal or not used very much at all, that we water with sprinklers, every week. And so the conversion process this year could be, we could actually shut off the area now, and it can die off while we put a contract together with a contractor to install the low water use landscaping. So this is City Hall, plenty of areas along there. We've got the community center with opportunities around the building mostly. This is the museum with some good opportunities of lesser used lawn area.
Brody, are those, like, if you're going up one, are those specifically like areas that are designated by sprinkler zones, or why are there sections like on the community center? I guess one picture up. Yeah, just that section where it just stops right in the middle of the parking lot. Why that? Is that sidewalk?
That was just arbitrary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a balance of still having a facility look good, and grass is part of that. But on some of the areas where, that's kind of where the dumpster is. Okay. People typically don't hang out there.
Is there a possibility on some of these to continue to water the trees? Like, for instance, at the entrance into City Hall, do a drip line or some sort of watering for the trees. Otherwise they'll die too.
And for most of these, what we would propose is not a full 100% xeriscape. It would be a low water landscape with a drip line and some
plants,
some drought resistant plantings and trees.
Cool.
I went to a water conservancy meeting. I guess it was 100 years ago, but it probably was just a year and a half ago. And they talked about the drip line and what can be done. And, J&J's they actually had Jerry Stevenson come and speak about it and how they switched over all of their watering system for the entire facility, and it made a huge drop, but everything still grew. So I think there are a lot of things we can do. I think that's a great idea.
Just some of the parks, this is Monterey Park. There's kind of a not very well used strip there. The cemetery, there's grass up by the maintenance facility there. A lot of the athletic fields and a lot of the parks, a lot of these low water landscapes, it's less maintenance to have a rock mulch, over time, because with wood mulch, you do have to keep it up and keep it refreshed and everything.
The wind.
But rocks can sometimes turn into projectiles. So we wouldn't necessarily want to propose these to be near the neighbors, vinyl fencing and things like that.
I was actually going to make that
Smart.
point. So
There's actually some
that on my mind as well.
at the Zions Bank in downtown Salt Lake. They had to remove their rock landscaping for that reason, because they were getting pitched at their windows.
Actually, can I suggest my parents actually cemented in their rocks around their pond and their stream that they had at a business. And that was really effective because they would have kids do exactly that and throw them into the water and plug the system. So you can cement them in.
Trailside Park, there's opportunities in the park strip. Entryway and parking area, Linda Vista. Canterbury Park along the street. Fremont Park near the entrance. Ranchettes near the entrance. And then Rock Creek has actually quite a bit of area available. This is just the western half of the park, and then that's the eastern. Now, down in kind of that southeast corner, it's already unirrigated. But the idea there is in future improvements, when the city does, we can incorporate this along the improvements with the public works facility that we're now doing. We can look at doing this, and the new park maintenance facility. We can look at doing this. So even if we don't put any, budget money to convert, we can plan for future installation as well.
So, Brody, you said that we don't have to decide on the actual areas tonight. You're just asking us to commit to the concept, right? So when would we talk about that? Because some of these I would not feel good about, and yet others I feel like they could go even further, just.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm sure all of us see something in here where we might say, why not a little extra, or why not a little less?
Yeah, and these were very cursory. There would obviously be some decision making.
When would that happen, or are we just turning that over to random decisions later?
What I would envision is so tonight, what you would do is decide if you want to put a dollar figure to it, and then what we would do is we would probably bring it back to the council for discussion. If it's in a park, if you want, we could run it by the Park Advisory Committee, but it would come back to the council, and we would make the decision of where we want to try to get it done based on the estimated cost.
I mean, the other part of that question really comes to, I can see a definite hierarchy to places that are absolutely not used and other places that might be able to be turned into something else down the road, and so that maybe we wouldn't end up actually doing that only because we could turn it into something else.
I think there's definitely some low-hanging fruit on this. Like,
yeah,
that's obvious. Let's do that.
Yeah.
There's some others that might require a little more planning, but I would like to try and move forward on low-hanging fruit fairly quickly.
I just would like us to be able to have that input, and I know that's not tonight, and I'm not trying to make it tonight.
Right.
So how does that happen?
So,
you just want me to decide?
Really, yeah, just throw out a number.
I'll pick which ones. You tell me what it'll cost.
Yeah. And we do have really, really rough estimates. It's not pretty. It is expensive. We're looking at around, 20, 25, depending on how much planting we want to do. That's kind of a big factor. But let's say anywhere between, $15 a square foot to, $30 a square foot. So, looking at, say, the City Hall one, for example, that's about a half acre of turf conversion. That's around 400,000, between 200 and 400,000.
So if you want us tonight to hit a figure and then go from there to see where we want to implement that first and where we can cut the water source now.
Well, yeah, tonight would just be a number, and then in a future work session, we would bring it back for discussion on where and how. And
Brody, can you give us any idea what the surplus might be?
It's going to be, I don't have the exact number. I'm sure Steve can give you a better estimate, but it's going to be over 500,000.
So available surplus, though, is the question. So,
but that could also be used to build a regional park.
Yeah, this competes with all other priorities in the city.
Everything else we're doing.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. This isn't just, free money.
That's what I mean.
This competes.
Available.
If we ask the council to give us a percentage of whatever surplus we have tonight, would that help you?
If that's what the council wants, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable taking all of the surplus.
Yeah, me neither.
Can I go with 5%?
But if we're talking about doing any sort of conversion of any significance, that's nothing.
That would give us
So
a little plot.
And it's not binding at this point, right? We're just trying to give you a ballpark. It is binding.
Well, it's binding in the fact that the money will be moved over. It's not, we can commit to not spend it until you've decided that that's.
We also have to decide that this is an investment for future water use, though, too, to be able to use elsewhere. So there is return for it in a way.
So what if we said the 200,000 You think we're in between 2 to 4 for one area, so I wonder if we could, is there a specific zone that you think we could maybe hit that 200 mark?
Sure. I mean, yeah, there's, like I said, there's
Potentially the city.
there's all kinds of options there that we would have to work through, and that would, you know,
I'm going to say that tonight, at least, I'm not going to vote in favor of this because we haven't really talked about the other options for surplus. And not having had that discussion, I think there's probably other places we could use that surplus. This is a great idea, but I start to wonder what I'm giving up in favor of this. And we haven't had that discussion yet. So I couldn't support it tonight.
One of the reasons we're suggesting that is that if we string this out all summer long, then we've lost our leadership ability to show residents that we are also committed.
We can also consider doing an annual amount and convert things on an annual, kind of like with the streetlight idea.
Yeah.
yeah, and I recognize, Councilman Ramon, the timing here is awkward. It's it's been born out of this evolving situation.
Yeah, and I respect that. I've not had time to really weigh the other options. And so I'm not saying this is a bad idea at all. I think it's a good idea. And I do like the idea of showing some leadership, but what am I giving up? I don't know that yet.
But I'm of the opinion that it's worthwhile to have the line item in the budget to at least keep it in front of us.
Agreed.
Okay.
So that's why I went with a recommendation of 5%, which is 25K.
Okay, I can go with that.
And then if we see how far that gets us, and if we're like, that wasn't nearly enough, then we can reallocate funds. So just like you said, we can make a decision.
But I need
later.
to know what else I'm giving up.
But yeah, I do think that's a valid concern, but I do think we need to get a line item in the planning so that it's there. And I think
So it's
putting in
allowable.
an annual amount, but let's not try and chew this
All at once.
all at
Yeah.
once. Let's take this at a bite at a time and move forward. But I think 25K is a good start. That sounds like that'll do a couple of areas.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't hamstring us for any of the other projects we want to move forward on.
Okay, I hear you recommending 25, Deb. I heard you would go with that.
I can second that if that's your motion.
I'll make that motion.
Can
I think we need a motion on the whole budget. This is just one of the line items.
Yeah, can I get a clarification? You mentioned two. One was a percentage and the other was 25,000.
I just figured let's make the math easy and just say 25K. That we don't have to do any math.
Okay, if that's your motion, I second it.
So I guess I should make a motion on the entire budget. So I'll make the.
Before you do that, Seth, I
Go
want
Let's,
to, can you go with 25?
Yeah, I think that's.
we can always increase it
Yeah.
later. I just want to talk about what,
No, I agree with what you're
Yeah.
saying, Dave. I think that's the right approach, is to really look at, before we
I mean,
dedicate.
if somebody were to
everything
say,
that.
okay, with this money, maybe I get
Yeah,
part of
under
my
this,
paramedic problem.
I don't want
under this proposal, this will have 95% of the.
I didn't weigh that, so.
Can we have one discussion at a time?
Yeah. Okay, Jordan, we're ready for a motion.
Do we need a public hearing because this is money?
Yeah, we
have to open that.
Do you want to do a motion first, or do you want to have the hearing first?
Hearing first.
Okay.
We're now in public hearing over what we've been talking about.
With the budget.
Over allowing $25,000 to be set as a starter amount, dealing with the drought this year, and then adjusting the Syracuse City budget for the fiscal year, and which is actually a budget opening. So, did we have anybody that would be opposed to what you've heard this evening, that would like to address the council? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close public hearing. I now entertain the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept proposed resolution 2125 adjusting Syracuse City budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021, and setting aside $25,000 to begin the process of converting some of our underused land for low water landscaping. Thank you.
And I second that.
I'm glad somebody else needs help. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, Brody, you have your direction there. Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about a proposed ordinance 2021 amending the Title IV of the Syracuse City Code pertaining to excavation. Robert?
All right. Council, so I am bringing to you some proposed amendments for Title IV. This relates to the excavation permit requirements. Excavation permit is required for anyone who excavates inside the city right-of-way. That's basically from the back of the sidewalk, clear through the street to the back of the sidewalk on the other street. Oftentimes, these are things like utility companies will come in, or individuals may need to replace their own sewer line or do a drive approach or different things like that. So oftentimes we found with how the current ordinance is set up right now it allows them up to 5 years to restore the property that they disturb. And there's really no penalties if the expected restoration is delayed. So this hasn't typically been a problem for us in the past, but we have seen a lot more excavation happening in the city, as you've noticed. So we don't want this to become a big problem. So we're looking proactively at this to try to curb it so that it doesn't become a big problem with individuals' properties that have not been restored properly and unsafe, right? This includes roadways that maybe aren't patched properly or maybe in timely, or sidewalks that maybe have been removed and not replaced. So the proposal we have here before you, and Planning Commission has reviewed this on their April 6th meeting and recommended approval. This proposal would give the excavator 5 days after they have received notice to properly restore everything, whether it's asphalt, landscape, whatever it is. After that 5 days, then a daily fee would be put in place of $500 a day. That fee is not in place yet. If this is something that you're good with, it's actually proposed on the next agenda item in the consolidated fee schedule as one of the items there. So another part of this is an attempt to simplify how the fee structure is set up for excavation permits. This would allow the city to prepare for at some point in time when we're able to do full online permitting and fees getting paid. This sets the city up really well for that ability. So that's a little bit of a summary if you have questions.
So
Let's go with Dave.
my question with this is what triggers, you just explained that from the time that they're noticed, what triggers that notice?
When they fill out an excavation permit, they put their expected completion date. So that completion date is the date that they are committing to on the permit. Our inspector inspects it, and obviously there are at times delays due to weather or unforeseen. The inspector and the city engineer will determine if that has any factor or validation.
So short answer is we have the flexibility to
yes,
to set that notice date, because
yes,
I'm okay with it as long as we have that flexibility. Because when I think about this, and we talk about sewer line work monthly and in one of my assignments, and sometimes something's discovered and it turns out to be a longer project, but it's because of a discovery that has to be addressed.
yeah.
So were that to happen, I'm okay giving them extra time to take care of those needs. But I see no reason why people can't finish the job when they're finished with whatever work was to be done under the road to finish putting it back. So I would fully support this.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question. Do you think there's anything that would, that they might start to play the system a little bit and give a later date for completion? Or is there something that holds them to that date that, like, say they decided, well, we're going to say our completion date is 3 months out then, and then we, even though it's done and it sits there and isn't complete, but we aren't beholden to that date we gave them. Would that be a possibility, or is there something stopping that?
Yeah, so our city engineer is responsible for all excavation permits, and under him is the public works inspector who follows up on all of these routinely, at least monthly, and is checking on these. If there's a condition where let's say a road has not been patched and it's creating severe problems, the inspector has the ability, under the direction of the city engineer and the ordinance, to require that excavator to patch the road, for instance, in that case, make the conditions safe. And they do not have to wait until their estimated deadline date. It's 5 days after they have been given notice. If on the 6th day they don't respond, then fines will begin.
But don't we have the option that we can say, your estimated completion date is unreasonable? You're going to have to give us some, either justify why you're going 3 months on a
Yes.
5-day job or change it.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying that
Yeah,
if conditions are unsafe, that can also be a trigger.
right.
Absolutely.
I think this is a great idea. I actually damaged a tire and a wheel just because somebody had left debris sitting there and had never recovered, or replaced holes and manholes and things like that. And there's a lot of damage that can occur.
Okay,
That's great.
So I'm going to make a motion that we approve this.
okay, I have a motion from Dave. Do we have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that? Now, 14 and 15 are the ones that we need to swap. So let's go to 15, and I'm going to declare we're in public hearing regarding ordinance 2021-13, amending the impact fee facilities plan, the IFFP, and the impact fee analysis, IFA, for public safety, providing for the calculation and collection of such fees, providing for an appeal, accounting, and severability of the same and other related matters. Brody, do you want to lead us through this one? And then we'll go into public hearing.
Sure. This was discussed in the previous meeting as well. The studies update our future plans for public safety facilities. Specifically, this includes, first of all, current values of costs of structures and vehicles over the vehicles that qualify, which are any vehicle over $500,000 in value. This specifically includes the plans for the future fire station. The current fee is $302 per residential unit, or 21 cents per square feet for new commercial development. It will be, the proposed fee would be $874 per unit, or 75 cents per square foot of commercial. Those are maximums. So that is based on the projected cost of these improvements. But the way the state law works, you can go up to that and not over. So
All right.
tonight, this is just a vote on just adopting the impact fee facilities plan and the impact fee analysis.
Okay. Now, I'm going to open this up to public hearing, which is item 14. But after I've closed public hearing, I'm going to let Seth go first, and then Councilman Savage, if he would go first, or second. So we now open this up to public hearing. If there's anyone here in chambers that would like to discuss this, or anybody on Zoom that would like to discuss this, you may. Let's go with Zoom first. If you're, if all joining us by Zoom, if you'd raise your hand so we could call on you. Cassie, do you see any? So hearing and seeing none, we'll close that for Zoom. Let's go to here. Anybody here in council chambers? Okay, I now close public hearing. Seth?
Yeah, so I think we've seen the work from Zions Bank and the IFFA or IFFP and the IFA, and we've all expressed some of our thoughts towards it this last work session in regards to the fact that it covers facilities, which is what the plan is designed to do. However, it doesn't necessarily cover the true impact, which we all kind of regret and remorse a little bit about that. But this is the way the system is designed, and so I don't have any concerns. I think we stick with what the recommendation level is.
Okay, Jordan,
Agree.
you good? I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve or propose ordinance 2021-13, amending the IFFP and IFA for public safety.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Corinne. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that? Now, is this Robert or is this you, Brody?
I'll take this one.
Take that one.
Okay, so this item is a change to our actual fee schedule. Again, we've seen this before. It includes changes to the utility rates, changes to the fine for cross connections of secondary water, a change to the light installation for new development. It eliminates some ready post supplies at our contract postal unit that is no longer offered. And then it actually sets that new impact fee that was just set in our IFFP and IFA. Keep in mind that the impact fee does not actually come into effect for new development until September 6th because of the period for people to contest it.
Okay. We're going to go into public hearing regarding resolution R2124. If there's anybody on the Zoom meeting that would like to address this issue, we would like to hear from you now. Cassie, are we? Okay. Anyone here that would like to address the council? Seeing none, I will close public hearing. Again, Jordan.
No, I think these fees cover the cost of the service it provides or so I think it's pretty clear.
Okay. All righty. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure. I make the motion that we accept resolution R2124, amending the Syracuse Consolidated Fee Schedule, making adjustments throughout.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that as 100%? Now, Brody, the strip of land, or Robert. Is it Robert?
It's the Robert Show.
$2,400 west and 2,700 south. There is, there's a development, shoreline development that is building 2,400 west. It's under construction right now. They are required to build that to current city standards as far as the transportation master plan. That's a 66-foot wide roadway. Currently at the intersection at 2,700 south and 2,400 west, the street width is 60 foot right away. And that does not follow the transportation master plan. Not only that, but it would neck down the traffic at the intersection, which is exactly opposite from what you should be doing when you're at an intersection. It would prohibit safe turn movements, left and right turn movements. So we have met with the landowner on one side of the road and explained the situation to them. They're not thrilled about it, but they understand the need for purchasing 6-foot wide strip from their property. An appraisal was done of $18,900 for 1,662 square feet. And it was agreeable to the landowner. which agreed exactly with the land appraiser. So I bring it to you as I think it's a public hearing, is it? It's not a public hearing?
Not a
Okay.
public hearing.
I bring it to you then for consideration of whether you would like us to proceed forward and authorize this real estate purchase contract.
Lisa, do you want to lead us?
As I look through all the list of things you have to do to make this kind of thing happen, I think, wow, that's a serious administrative process. Thank you for all that work. I think there's nothing to be said besides thanks for taking care of that.
Anyone else have any comments?
Public safety is paramount, and this helps us get there.
All right, I entertain a motion.
Motion to accept or authorize the administration to execute real estate purchase contract for the strip of land at 2419 West, 2700 South for road widening.
Thank you, Corinne. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Cassie, would you record that as unanimous? We're at a public hearing about surplus property. Brody, do you want to lead us through what maybe the public would need to know about surplus property?
So from time to time, the city does have to get rid of property, and we have an adopted policy on how to get rid of that. And so as far as the police vehicles that are up for the surplus, if there's any questions, I would actually defer to Chief Atkin, and he
All right.
can
Okay.
give that to you.
Let me open public hearing. First of all, if someone has some questions of Chief Atkin, because those are the big items that are on here. Let me hear first from the Zoom folks. If any of you would like to comment or ask a question of Chief Atkin, would ask you to step forward now. Not seeing any. Anybody here that would like to ask Chief anything? Okay, I close public hearing. Let's go back to Corinne. Do you want to talk this? You have a list of those things when we review.
Yeah, they're right here before us. I know that there's a vehicle maintenance plan and mileage and life of vehicles, and this is really straightforward, and I think we should surplus these vehicles.
Okay. Any further discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we authorize administration to surplus the public property.
Thank you, Seth.
Second.
Have a second by Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Cassie, record that as unanimous approval. Noah, you ready to go to bat?
Yes, sir. Good evening, council.
Hello.
We've got Antelope Edge planned residential development. This is a final plat. So we have seen this with the general plan. We've seen it with the rezone. We have a development agreement. You guys, I'm sure remember the project. There are 24 single family lots with some open space. The final plat is an administrative type item. If you remember recently, we changed the ordinance so that you guys don't have to see these in general, but because it has a development agreement, it's a PRD, you wanted to still see these. So here we are. Looks like the applicant, Rob Kelly's here. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
If you have any questions, he's
Council, do
available.
you want to hear from Mr. Kelly?
I don't need to hear any more. We've heard about this one a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Council, I want to thank you for your comments that you made on the recreation, the public safety issue there was in the street. So Dave, do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept this final plat. We've already discussed it many times.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Cassie, would you record that one also as unanimous? 19.
Okay, this next item is the one that we received a lot of public comment on. It's called Abington MXD. So existing zoning is A1. And again, we've looked at this again, so I won't go too much into detail since we have looked at this before. So the current zoning's A1, proposed zoning is mixed use. Their proposal includes 2-story townhomes and 3 kind of vertical mixed use buildings. There's a combination of what we call front fed and rear fed. The front fed townhomes are 1-car garage and the rear fed townhomes are 2-car garage. It comes out to be about 13.58 units per acre. So I'd say average density on townhomes are usually around about this, 12, 13. I think last time we decided we wanted more time to think about it, and specifically the traffic issues. That was the big point. So in the meantime, the applicant has hired a traffic study. His name is Ryan Hales. He's also met twice with the neighborhood, with the school, and the HOA president for Monterey Estates and staff. And there were some good ideas that came out of that meeting, but it was kind of an exercise in exploring all of the potential solutions with the recognition that there need to be some more study into anything before anything would be actually implemented. Of course, staff has reviewed the plans for compliance with the mixed use ordinance. We feel that it does meet the ordinance as far as the requirements for commercial, the open space, the architectural requirements. There's been multiple rounds of revisions there with their architect and the developer. They've been good to work with to come into compliance with the ordinance. The applicant is here. His name is Garrett Seeley. He's with Red Pine Realty, and his traffic engineer, Ryan Hells, is sitting next to him. So if you have any questions from me as your staff representative or from the developer, they're right there.
Gentlemen, could you come forward, both of you, and so that you can answer both of your questions from the council? Seth, I know that you were the one who wanted to see traffic studies done.
I'm sure I was one of the.
Yeah, one of them. But would you begin, and do you have questions for?
Yeah, so if we could just have you kind of walk us through some of the traffic study, I think that would be important. And I think also just maybe we've done this in the past where we've talked about, including official traffic studies and development agreements. I would just make even the recommendation, or just to think about it from the council, that we always have the traffic study finalized before we move forward an actual traffic study. Just food for thought.
Mayor, could I say something too about the traffic study? I remember there was a comment from somebody that said, why didn't we share? Just for the record, the city hasn't seen the traffic study because it wasn't done until now. So this is fresh, hot off the press. So yeah, I think hopefully that explains why we weren't trying to withhold any information or anything. We literally.
Yeah, and I think the public needs to understand that things don't happen just because you snap your fingers. The traffic study requires weeks, so.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Mayor and Council, I do have a PowerPoint presentation if that would be applicable. It might give a little more light on the traffic study, I think.
Cassie, is there a way we can?
Can I just share my screen through the?
Yeah, are you on Zoom right now?
I am.
What's your?
Ryan Hale.
Ryan Hales.
Okay, you should be good.
Perfect. And I'll put it into presentation mode here, I hope. Mayor and Council, thank you. My name is Ryan Hells with Hells Engineering. These traffic studies do take time to complete because we have to go out and count, and we can only count on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday. Traffic is different on a Monday, and it's different on a Friday, just as it is different on Saturday and Sunday. Many of you who drive cars, you all know, you've driven around. If you drive around on a Sunday afternoon, midday, there's not a lot of traffic on the roads. As you get closer to I-15, you find more traffic. I do want to talk a little bit about the study that we did. Again, it's fresh off the press, and we will complete that, wrap it up, and send it to you tomorrow. But I did bring the analysis. We were able to finish that, and I wanted to bring that to the council this evening. I do want to talk about what a traffic impact study is for the public who may or may not understand. There are probably some who are very familiar with them, but we really go out and we look at intersections and we grade an intersection or a roadway with a level of service. Level of service is a letter grade, A through F, and we look at that level of service of how the intersections are functioning under current conditions before the traffic study even starts. So we can understand what the background conditions are and really what we're up against. Sometimes we find that there are improvements that are needed in a background condition that are not attributed to the project. In one of the meetings that we held, we talked about many of the issues that are occurring along 1550. All of you who are on the city council, I'm sure have driven down 1550, have had an opportunity to drive through there with school in session and witness the parents that stop alongside the road to pick up their children. So that was one of the questions that had come up, an existing condition. And then the safety of those children as they cross the road. So that's some of the things that we have looked at and some of the recommendations that we have made coming out of this study. So I do want you to know when we began this study, we typically go out, we gather the data, and I'll talk about that as I go on, but we picked up the data when school was in session. It was in session, as well as the high school, because that's important when you're doing a traffic study near a school like this. So we were able to get that, collect the data. We grade the intersections based on how they're operating under current conditions. And then we recommend improvements to mitigate that poor level of service if something is amiss with one of the intersections. Sometimes it's as easy as changing the control, maybe from a two-way stop to a four-way stop, or maybe we're looking at a future traffic signal. And then we also look at and we assist the city in transportation planning on this micro level unit. When we look at the turn pockets, we might say the turn pocket is 200 feet long, but it needs to be 225 feet long. So there are things that we look at in relation to that as well that can play into your transportation master plan and into your future planning as you look at how to cross pedestrians and improve the overall safety of not only the vehicles, but the pedestrians, the bikes, and everybody, because we're all using the various different modes of transportation to travel throughout the community. When we look at this, we typically collect data collection in a morning, an afternoon, and an evening scenario around a school. Because it's important because there's a surge of traffic that comes in about a 15 to 20 minute increment before school starts and after school lets out. Sometimes what we find it's more problematic with a school when school lets out because you have parents who arrive early to pick up their children and they wait for a longer amount of time. In the morning when they come to drop off the kids, they pull up and typically, hopefully this is the way it occurs, you want to have a right side drop off. You want your child to get out on the right side of the car on the curb line. You don't want them to get out in the traffic stream and have to fight the traffic as soon as they're getting out of the car. So hopefully you're all good parents and you drop your kids off on the right side, or did. My kids won't let me drive them to school anymore. It's embarrassing when dad shows up and drops them off at high school. But we also did a site visit to observe the existing traffic conditions. And then again, we make adjustments. When we look at that traffic volume, right now we're coming out of COVID. Many of you are aware that people have been working from home. So oftentimes we look at the traffic volumes for seasonal adjustments and or COVID-related adjustments. In this case, we looked at a nearby traffic counter from UDOT on State Highway 93. There's one located adjacent to the system where we're at 1550. And we looked at how the traffic volumes were functioning. They were actually functioning at a higher volume than they were in 2019 before the pre-COVID conditions. So what we did is we looked at that to see if we needed to make any adjustments. With school in session, school is the high generation of traffic in the area. In this case, we counted the morning and it was a little bit lower than the midday, and we counted the evening and it was also a little bit lower than the midday counts. So we actually ran a midday condition, so kind of a worst case condition. As traffic engineers, oftentimes we're confused or accused, not confused, but we're accused of being pessimistic because we look at the worst case condition. We're trying to solve traffic at a worst case condition. So we picked and chose the worst case condition to look at when school was letting out, when the majority of traffic was there on the roadway, 29% greater than the morning peak hour, 10% greater than the evening peak hour. We looked at the traffic in that worst case condition and ran our analyses. In the middle of the page, it talks about a background. So the existing and the future background conditions. When we look at the existing traffic conditions, we take the traffic, we actually run it through a simulation program. We rebuild and recreate the roadway system the way it sits. We put the traffic volumes in and we put the signal timings in from the traffic intersection, the lit intersection on State Highway 193. And then we run it through a simulation model. We run that simulation model 10 times. It takes time slices at 1/10 of a second. There are 3,600 seconds in a minute. We take it at a tenth of, or 3,600 seconds in an hour, 60 times 60. And we take a tenth of a slice on that. So we're taking 360 data points every time we run this. We run it 10 times. We're doing our homework to look to see how traffic is moving. We take into account the pedestrian flows. We counted pedestrians out here. How many school children walk back and forth to school? There were a lot. When we counted them at State Highway 193, there were 40 that left the school and came to the north. Not a real big deal, but what it tells us is a lot of the pedestrians are going up to cross 193, which is fine, but a larger majority is going to the south into the local neighborhood. There were 100 and well, I think it was about 159 students that were headed southbound. Now, when I say students, there are parents that walk to the school and pick up their children and walk them home. So some of the pedestrians that we counted were some that were northbound, picked up their children and then headed back southbound again. Elementary school. So as would be expected, lots and lots of pedestrians. So we want to make sure the pedestrians are safe as we look at it, not only the project, but how they flow in the existing conditions. Sorry, I bounced forward a couple slides. We also look at the plus project conditions. So we take that existing conditions that we've run, we've simulated, and we've calibrated and validated the model, and we layer on top the new project related traffic so that we then get a comparative approach of additive combined. How does the traffic continue to function? What kind of additional improvements do we need to make for this system to work and function at a good level of service? The previous slide, when I was talking about level of service A through F, we try and hit a level of service D as in Delta or better, not only in existing conditions, but in those future conditions. We ran this for 2 different time periods. We ran it for year 2021 as well as year 2026. So we looked out 5 years into the future. In order to do that, we use the Wasatch Front Regional Council's travel demand model. We also look at your transportation master plan to see what kind of future volumes you're projecting on the roadways. And then we complete that build condition analysis with what we call the existing conditions plus the project, and then the future 2026 with the project layered on top. When we looked at the study area, there were some intersections that we had counted. Obviously, the project will have 3 access points as was drawn and as we evaluated. There was some discussion about number 5, and I'm going to talk about that as we finish up this discussion today. But number 1, the State Highway 193 to the north of 1550 and where it ties in, signalized intersection. Number 2, 300 south in the intersection with 1550. Number 3 is 450 south, where the project access comes in and ties in as well from the west side of the road. Those were the 3 primary accesses on the north-south route. Accesses 4 is a project-related access on the west side of the project, northwest corner. And access number 5 is an access fairly close, but just south of 300 south. Again, we'll talk about that one in a little more detail in a moment. Those turning movement counts, when we collected those, we looked at the 3 existing intersections that we spoke about. Did the morning, we count 2-hour blocks. So we counted from 7 to 9 to pick up the school period when students are coming back and forth from school. Well, to school actually, hopefully. Shouldn't say back and forth, but coming to school. We looked at the midday afternoon, 2 to 4 when they're leaving school. And then we looked at 4 to 6 in the afternoon. Now that is standard engineering practice to look at those times. I have counted State Highway 193, not just here, but we've done some work in the Freeport area. And so I've looked at this road probably more than a lot of traffic engineers have. I'm familiar with it. We know when those peak hours are, and it's important that we have those peak hours. School was in session, as I previously stated, both at the Syracuse Arts Academy as well as Syracuse High School. According to the UDOT data, at the nearby signals, we were higher than we talked about pre-pandemic. So we have looked at it to try and make those adjustments if it was needed, was not in this case. And then the afternoon peak counts, again, we talked about the 29 and 10% higher than the morning and evening respectively. So we did analyze that worst case condition. The development will consist of 127 residential townhome units and 4,800 square feet of office space. Trip generation was calculated using the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, 10th edition. That's a manual and a compendium of 2 books that are each one's about 1.5 inches thick. They've gone to an electronic version. Thank goodness I can now carry it around on my laptop. Don't have to bring all the books with me. I've done that before. But when we look at the trips from the project, I want to focus on those evening peak hour trips. What we did is, again, being a little bit pessimistic, we knew that we have more evening peak hour trips. How many of you leave your home during midday? Just by raise of hand. And some of us do. How many of you leave your home during that evening peak hour? Yeah. Again, it's a mixed bag. We have people that leave at different times of the day. Sometimes we delay our start in the morning. Sometimes we delay our coming home at night. But generally speaking, we all get hungry at the same time. And we all kind of find our way home, no matter what time we leave work. We took those peak hours, those evening peak hour trips, and we pulled those into the peak afternoon time period when the traffic was busiest on the roadway. So we relayered the traffic in the worst case condition and have run that analysis. When we run that analysis and we start looking at level of service, that's what you see on this screen. On the left-hand side, you'll see the intersection number 1 through 5, identified by the intersection just to the right of that, talking about where those are located. 1550 and 183 is the first intersection. I'll move across that one to begin with. It's a capital letter, level of service C, in the background condition, the BG, under the existing 2021 conditions. In the PP, or the plus project, the next column over, it still functions at level of service C after the project is added. 300 South, you can look at that as well, going across the grid. But in each one of these conditions, we ran the background condition and the existing level of service. They're all colored green because they have acceptable levels of service. If you were to see a level of service E or F, we would either have that in yellow or red, and we would identify some mitigation measures that would help combat some of that poor level of service that would be occurring. So as we look across the screen, sometimes you'll see that when you have additional traffic into an intersection, we actually have to optimize the timing of the traffic signal in some cases. And in this case, the timing of the light was optimized. We know that we have an east-west progression on 183 dictated by UDOT in the way that they coordinate their signal system. So we're not skirting around that, but we're coordinated in such a way that we're trying to make it more efficient. There were a little bit of problem to the north of State Highway 193 on 1550. The queues were backing up and backing into that neighborhood. Again, not related to the project, but related to those background conditions. When we optimized the signal timing to make it function better, we actually got a little bit better level of service out of the intersection. And that's where you see it went from level of service C in the existing conditions, and in the future, we end up at level of service B. So we had level of service B all the way across the scale from the background future 2026. Again, with some mitigation, it remains at B. And then in the plus project, when we layer that on top, we're still at that level of service B condition. A couple of recommendations that came out of this study. We had, the first one was to install a dedicated right turn lane for the northbound approach. So when you head northbound right now under current conditions, you're in a shared lane environment where you have a through and or a right turn pocket in the same lane. What we're saying is we need to separate out and have a dedicated right turn pocket, making it its own movement at the signalized intersection. What that allows you to do is when you pull up to that traffic light, if it's red in your direction and you're facing that red light, as long as it's clear and you're making a right turn and you have a gap in the traffic stream, you can turn out and make your right turn. It's something that will help in not only the background conditions, but into the future as well. The other recommendation that we made is in this north area to stripe it, the roadway as a 3-lane road. So what 3 lanes do is it gives you a center 2-way left turn lane that you're all familiar with. The reason we want to do that, the school, the Arts Academy, they load from their south access. So southbound vehicles that are headed southbound to get into the school entrance on the west side of the school, they need a place to turn. Right now, they're stopping in the center of the travel lane, which is a very dangerous condition, and you can have a lot of rear-end accidents. Now, it may not be occurring right now, but as traffic increases, it will continue to become a higher priority. It would be safer, and it would be wise to put in a 2-way left turn lane, allow them to move over, get into that 2-way left turn lane, and then make the left turn from that lane so that the through vehicles can go around them. In addition to that, we discussed some of the traffic calming features that could be implemented. One of those is a pedestrian bulb out. I'll show an image on the next screen and show you what I'm talking about, but it's a way to minimize the pedestrian crossing distance. Again, safety. We bulb out the intersection in such a way that it protects the parked cars on the side of the road. And in addition, it minimizes the pedestrian crossing exposure within the roadway. In what we're talking about, we would have, there's 44 feet of asphalt. We're talking about 2 11-foot travel lanes, and one in the northbound direction, one in the southbound direction, a 12-foot two-way left turn lane, and then 10 feet for the parking area. So a car can pull off to the side and park. That bulb out would be on the north end of the cars in that northbound direction, would provide them a little bit of protection, a place to pull off, drop off the kids on a right side drop off, which is standard practice. Again, preferred practice, I should say. And then we'd have the bulb out for the increased visibility. So the bulb outs provide a lot of help for those pedestrians, the school students, as well as the cars. It also creates a traffic calming feature. Traffic calming is something that has been mentioned by the neighbors. The HOA represented there are several conditions. One of them is they were talking about parking infiltration. Parking infiltration occurs when the school was outloading. Cars would park on both sides of the street in a typical condition, and they would park and wait for their children to come out to the vehicle. That parking infiltrated from the north end by the school all the way down into the neighborhood. There was a suggestion that we red curb everything. It's hard because there's an existing problem at the school. The school needs somewhere to have the pedestrians come out, the school children to come out and get in the cars. Sometimes that typically occurs on site for the majority of those individuals. But you will find, even if you had parking on site, you would still find parents that want to park at the curb because they want the quick exit. They don't want to pull into the parking and have to wait and serpentine all the way through the parking lot. So not a fault of the school, but it's a combination of parents being, I'll say lazy, or wanting to get somewhere quick. They want to move in, pick up their children, and get on the road. So if we limit parking on one side of the road, we have the parking on the east side, again, 2 11-foot travel lanes, a center two-way left turn lane, and a 10-foot shoulder for those cars to be able to still stop without creating a problem. If we were to red curb all of it, we would push those parked cars elsewhere. They would be pushed into the parking lot at the mortuary, northwest of the school. It would be pushed into some of the commercial areas to the north. And we don't want to do that. There's a balance. And we're trying to strike a balance between what the traffic is and what the parked vehicles are doing. The other things we've talked about are driver feedback signs. A driver feedback sign is a speed limit sign that sits on the side of the road. It has a static display. It might read 35 miles per hour, and then it has a dynamic display below it, usually flashing your speed or showing your speed in red. If you're speeding, if you're driving the speed limit, it will remain blanked out. Driver feedback signs give drivers the positive feedback that you are driving too fast, you need to slow down. Some of them are associated with rapid blinking lights, usually a flashing white light. There's one in St. George that I'm aware of that actually has red and blue lights that flash. Many people hit the brakes. I've followed people down that road and they'll hit the brakes thinking there's police enforcement, and they slow down immediately. More than anything, it's just to give drivers an awareness of how fast they're driving and to let them slow down naturally. We also brought up the idea of a staggered school drop-off and pickup time that would minimize some of the parking out front and try and keep it down to smaller groups. Now, there's some coordination issues with a neighboring school that lets out first, a neighboring charter school, or a sister school, I should say. That may or may not be feasible, but it's something that should be explored. Talking about those improvements, this is a bulb out that I'm going to show in the first figure. There's some raised bollards that go around the corner, but you can see the car that's parked back here off to the side. This little Honda, it looks like, is parked in the shadows, but there's a parking area that is now protected with the bulb out. The pedestrians now have a shorter crossing distance going across the crosswalk. Again, a safer condition. I'm not saying that we have to have the sloped curb and the bulb outs. I'm sorry, the bollards around the bulb out, but this is an idea and a concept of something that you could consider at this intersection. The driver feedback signs, you've probably seen these before. This one happens to be solar powered. You can see the solar panel on top, the static display in the middle, and the dynamic display down below. They're not always yellow with your speed flashing in yellow. They can be, there's a variety of different kinds that you can choose from. In addition to that, there's been a question about a crossing guard. That's one of the questions that we'll still need to answer. We don't know until we know the enrollment how many school children will cross. Utah State Code states that you have to follow the MUTCD, the Utah version of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's a handbook that's been prepared by the Federal Highway Administration, with Utah having its own code and adopted version of that. But you have to meet certain requirements. Those requirements include the time of the let out, the amount of cars that are crossing, the gaps between the cars, and the number of school children who are crossing, trying to find those safe gaps. It's not that we can just install them anywhere. And so we can't, our recommendation would be to put it in when you meet those requirements, because we want safety first. In this condition, we just don't know how many school children will be crossing. There are many homes that are to the south, a little bit short of 200 homes to the south in the neighborhood that has just been built, with 150 pedestrians, or 160, somewhere in that range. That's approximately one per household. In the units that will be constructed in this townhome project, typically what we find are we don't have as many school children because we don't have the diversity of age in a townhome that you do in a single family home. In a single family home, typically you have a family that has grown, they're a little bit larger, and sometimes they have school children that are a little bit older, and some that are younger. And so there's a broader range of age within a townhome. This school being an elementary school, we might have some pedestrians from there, some school-age children, but it will probably not be to the intensity of the subdivision to the south. We won't have 159 pedestrians going to the south. The ones that we have going to the south, we won't have going to the west. The next form of traffic calming would be adding those signs that are the school crossing signs, making sure that people are aware. Again, you have to meet the requirements, but this is something that draws added visibility to the crosswalk. Not only are we shortening the pedestrian crossing time, but it's putting the lines on the road and making drivers aware that there's something else there. That's what the signs do. They draw a driver's attention because they're bright yellow or fluorescent yellow-green. And then we talked about the two-way left turn lane and the two-way left turn lane effects of being able to move into that two-way left turn lane to make your southbound left turn movement into the school one-way circulation driveway. It would be much safer for the cars on the roadway in general. One of the questions that was raised was from the side streets where we would have no parking and where no parking would need to occur. I think it was a comment from the HOA as they were looking at this. The question was, it becomes a little bit dangerous trying to exit when there's cars that are parked on the side of the road, which I certainly do agree with, and the red curb parking. On the west side of the road, you can see that we've put no parking along through there. In addition to that, we've drawn the site triangles, we've drawn the site triangle of what you would need coming out at 300. So you need to have no parking near 300 south. If you get cars that are too close, they'll occlude the vision of the drivers coming down the road. In this case, what we want to do is limit where some of that parking can occur. So the parking can occur on this green stripe across the frontage of the school. From the access points coming out, and I believe it was 450 down here on the south, you also have some site distance limitations and restrictions that we'll need to be aware of, as well as the access to the north. So we can provide that data to the city, and you can go back and take those measurements and make sure that you have adequate site triangles where you don't want to have people parked. Again, that was a request from the HOA to kind of look at those site triangles, so we have included that as well. Typically, that means no parking within 100 feet of the intersection on the east side due to the site distance restrictions. The one thing that I do want to mention that we have written in the report, and I'll point it out here on the slide, and I apologize, this is our question slide, but I'll use it as an example. The intersection coming in on the north end, you've got a northwest access that comes out to 300 south. You have a south access that comes out to 450 south. But here just south of 300 at about maybe 325, there's another access. We talked about that access in our meeting with the working group. As we talked about as a working group, I had mentioned our concern for that access point. The concern for full access is that you're so close to 300, it becomes difficult. As we looked at it and ran our evaluations, our recommendation is not to have that access at that location. We talked about limiting it to a right in, right out so that we could restrict it, but we still have the concern that southbound vehicles, if you're southbound on 1550 and you're approaching 300, a car turns on its blinker, you don't know if they're turning onto 300 or if they're turning into that access point. That could cause some driver confusion and become a concern. Again, maybe not as much right now with the current conditions and current environment, but as traffic grows, it will become more and more problematic and could become a safety issue. If you are to proceed with that access, our recommendation is not full, but only right in, right out, but preferably not to have the access. Mayor and council, I would open this up to any questions you might have for me.
Council, do you have anything?
Seemed very thorough.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Clearly done this before.
A couple times, a couple times. About 2,000 studies, so.
Good.
I might mention his firm is UDOT's preferred firm for their studies, so.
So on the slide where you started to put together some of the recommendations, I think some of the feedback we heard from some of the concerned citizens were around, it went from we'll pay for some of these to let's see what comes of this. And so because this is so fresh, we're just seeing this right now. Obviously, some of those recommendations were in line with what the school would have to do from a policy standpoint around the parking and pick up and drop off or whatever. But where are we at in regards to taking a lead in getting these implemented? Probably better for Garrett.
I don't think they can do a lot of these. These are all on the other side of the road.
Well, financially, they can.
I think this is the uniqueness of what we're trying to do here is you have a willing participant in me who's going to purchase this property to help implement these items that need to take care of an existing problem, right? This isn't something that we're going to be causing, but is already existing in this neighborhood. The comments that came from the citizens are concerned about the traffic, the children, the school already existing. We're willing to step up, and we've indicated this all along, to work with the city to implement these items. End of story.
So I guess Noah maybe or Robert, I don't know who would speak to the concept of the bulb outs and the flashing.
He's not going to be happy with this.
I know those recommendations aren't necessarily.
I mean, several of those, I was just looking at the approval maps, you'd have to implement in front of the school. So now you're talking about school property that you would have to implement that bulb out. You'd have to do an in instead of an out, obviously, because the road is only so wide. So you'd have to cut into.
Well, I think that's what Ryan, and you can correct me, what he was saying is
right.
That road is wide enough. So if you can envision that intersection, what you do is you stripe it so that you move traffic. So you have, it's 11 foot, 11, 12, 11.
So we'd start on the west side and we'd have 11-foot travel lane in the southbound direction. So we basically move all the lanes over.
You push it over to the west.
And you still have 10 feet. So we come out and curve around. I know bulb outs are not popular with snow plows. I totally understand that.
You okay?
It's just, we're looking at more of a safety issue.
Ultimately, these,
Hey, Mayor, can we just remind everybody to speak in the microphone because people at home can't hear you speak down here. Thanks.
Ultimately, these are city roads, and so the city has to buy off.
That's one of the things I'm concerned about is we can say that you have a willing participant, but in the end, the responsibility falls on the city. Even if you paid for it up front, which I don't think there's any way that we can obligate you to do that. But let's say that you did pay for it up front. The maintenance falls on the city for eternity. So if we create a situation that's more expensive to maintain, for example, problems with snow plows, problems with curbing, and problems with balustrades that we have to maintain and enforce and take care of, we're creating a additional cost for ourselves by authorizing that. And that's a concern for me.
So is the bulb out the most expensive and the most obnoxious of all these recommendations when it comes to, well, I'll ask you, Robert, does that, in looking at the recommendations, are there any others that stand out to you that would become a maintenance issue?
I think I'd like to actually give Robert some time to review this before
I don't think it's fair to put him on the spot.
Well, he saw the same pictures that we do. I'm just, he has an idea, a general idea. I'd like to know if he sees anything immediately that stands out to him. I'm not asking him to put it in blood. I'm asking just for his
Robert,
opinion.
this is your chance to commit.
Yeah, this is my first time seeing it too, just like you.
Like us.
But yes, Dave is absolutely right. With anything is going to require maintenance, right? Without knowing, there are all sorts of different types of traffic calming devices, even more than what's shown here. Ones that even the MUTCD has described, but each one can be better used in different applications, right? So each application may have a different type. So yeah, this is something I can certainly review in the traffic study and let you know what my thoughts are. Some of the things that Dave mentioned are right at the top of my mind. Things that popped right up is the ongoing maintenance, the snow plowing, and extra painting or changing out lights. Certainly that doesn't mean that I'm against safety. I definitely want our residents to be safe. I want drivers to be safe, all traveling public, right? Whether you're on bikes, walking, or in a vehicle. So safety definitely trumps, but we recognize that there are some additional costs, either for installation or maintenance. I know that doesn't answer your question,
No,
but
helps.
I'm certainly happy to look at it and
Give us your
I'm
input.
concerned there's some
opinion.
give and take on some of these as well. I mean, when I look at adding a third lane on a road like that, on the one hand, that means that you don't have as much likelihood that somebody's going to rear end you because you're keeping traffic moving. But it's also now a third lane for someone to cross. And while it's maybe not another distance or any extra steps, it's more times to look for traffic for that child who has to cross the road one more time. So those things on the one hand say, okay, I'm safer for the car, but I'm less safe for the kid. And so these are concerns that I have when we talk about the overall safety of how we manage it.
Yeah, I share the same concern as you. One other thing to think about too is the road is wide enough for, it's a 66, if I remember right, 66 foot wide, which would allow enough for 3 lanes of traffic, 3 full lanes of traffic, probably with a little bit of shoulder on the sides too. That center lane oftentimes acts as a left turn lane, and there is a need for left turns in and out of the school as well. So I certainly wouldn't want to prohibit that. I'm not sure if this would do any of that, but I would look for something like that to be able to not stack traffic up and compound a problem.
So Dave, you would, I thought we left it with that you were gonna represent us to the Syracuse Arts Academy. Can you speak to what?
So they're open. They understand that they are residents, or I mean, they're here in the city, and they're open to work with it. Obviously, anytime there's a situation like this, one of their concerns that comes up is it going to be as safe, and what will we have to do? But I think I only talked to Dale, the one time, and he was very cautious not to say. Dale's a very well-spoken person and well thought out. He was cautious not to say anything that would be, oh, we can't or we won't, because I think that he realizes that he operates a business in this, or a business and a school here.
So I mean, I think, so just for me personally speaking about this project, I think that it makes a lot of sense. I think the project would present the logical, or one of the logical options to transition towards something that would be a future use as we head west. I don't know that right now, obviously we've had enough time to review the traffic study. I couldn't follow all of that. That was just too over my head for that last minute. And then obviously we would want Robert to review. And so for me, could this be a great use? Sure. We've got a lot on our plate to discuss in regards to what this looks like in the future and whatnot. So I would recommend getting some more information, tabling until we're ready to really consider that information that's just been presented to us.
I'm really concerned about tabling it again in all fairness to people who are working on this project. The longer you work on something, the more you've got into it. And if we, in the end, decide that it's not a good thing, are we really being fair by letting them continue to go on and on? I have some other concerns for this particular project as far as timing. We're in a year where we have let a massive amount of permits, more than a typical year for us for building. And we're also in a drought where we have to deal with that. And so while there are cities out there, because I talked to one on Sunday, just a casual acquaintance, said their city's considering a moratorium till the drought's over. I'm not suggesting we go to a moratorium, but I am saying that large building impacts in difficult conditions can be challenging. So I'm of the opinion this is not the right time for the city for this project.
Mayor, can we let Robert sit down?
Yeah. Sit down.
Over here in case you need me.
Council, if you'd let me weigh in just a minute. I was in that discussion group along with Mrs. Finau and with Ryan, and at that time it was with Derek. We were talking. It looked like with everybody sitting down that there'd be a way that traffic calming could be organized with participation from the development. During that time, the school also said that it needed a bigger parking lot for its events with its amphitheater. And they would be willing at some point to increase the size of that parking lot to the east, which would in the daytime hours, during the school hours, would allow for a bigger place for cars to be queued coming into the city. So I have that bit of information from the Arts Academy, having been in that setting. I want to remind the council that this really is a vote up and down of a change of a zone. And I think we still have time for that committee to meet and to be able to work out problems. I hate to discourage building based on one seasonal growth. Drought. That seems strange that a city would defer building thinking that their problems are all be over in a year. But I think we have to plan as though there were no drought and then manage the drought as we can when that happens.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I actually have some different concerns. Mine are more with the plan itself. I know we're not approving a plan tonight, but the overall strategy of this, these are rental condos, which essentially are larger apartments. I don't like that particular business plan where these are not going to be owner occupied. These are really just big apartments. The other issue I have is I don't think the live work condo is an acceptable use. I don't like those as far as mixed use, just because I've talked to several, I actually reached out to several people I have in the real estate business, and they keep telling me they don't know what these live use condos are. They've never heard of them being successful. They're not really seeing them out there. We're possibly doing some of the, I don't want to saturate our city with these live work condos without knowing that they're even going to be successful. There's just not any data to show this is a needed commodity. And as I've stated before, I do think, I know we've had some ideas of what the other area may look like. We don't have anything concrete. I agree this is still premature. We have a lot of work to do on the roadways. I think a lot of these are great recommendations that we need to have Robert look at. I just feel like this whole thing is a little premature, and overall, I don't care for the end product. And so I'm actually opposed to this. And so if I had to vote today, I will be voting nay.
What exactly is the live-work scenario? Do you have an idea? The work condo?
This is their product.
I just thought you might have an idea of what
I know
it is.
I know what I've asked about, and it's just basically there's a little business on the bottom and apartment on top.
So yeah, that's not the definition I have. A live work is actually someone that lives there and works on the bottom.
That's what I said.
Yep, these are separate units. They have separate entrances. They're not connected in any way. And so they're not connected for a live work product. They will rent those out to physicians or whomever it may be.
So the plan actually says live work units.
They're not live work units. They're separated. They have to be.
Sorry.
So then they will be rented by separate people.
Say that again, please.
So they would be rented by separate owners.
That's correct.
Or whatever.
That's correct. And Commissioner Savage, on the rental side of it, I know rentals are a bad thing, but none of us rented before. I know when we're starting out. The thing is that if someone buys those units, they have all the right to rent them as well. There's no way that you can stop. It's better to have the control versus having somebody that can purchase one and rent it to whomever they want with no control. So that's all I have to say on that.
I don't have a problem with the idea of a rental unit simply because we've all experienced rentals and we've all been renters, the vast majority of us, and I currently have children renting a townhome. And I do think that there's a greater amount of control that comes when it is understood that there's a homeowners association or a renter development that's in charge of caretaking and maintenance. I have a great concern if we have individual owners who are in charge of their own landscaping and their impact is enormous because they are connected, their lawns are connected, so you can't even put a fence between those homes, which a single family home enjoys. So I think that in my opinion, the maintenance is a better idea to have it rental units because there is one business in charge of taking care of all of that landscaping, and it tends to lead to a much better product. I do have a concern with only one outlet. I know that eventually we expect that will be different because we'll end up with development on that west end. But at this point, that's just as Jordan said, it's not concrete. We don't know where we're headed with that. And it is concerning to me to only have one access that goes out on that north side. And that's not to say that it won't improve over time, but I do think that is something that is concerning to have that right off the bat, to add that many units and have one access out. The other one has to lead there's much more space that has to be traversed. So I don't think that's a consideration for most people coming and going. They will access from 300, and that concerns me that if we were to develop these first, that we don't have any other roads that are connected at this point, and they can't go west, they can't go any further to the north and south. They have to go all the way over to 2700. I'm not terribly impressed with the design, and once again, we know this is just a zone change, but I'm not impressed with the design of the buildings themselves, and I would want some work done on that to make them much less mediocre in design. So those are just some of my thoughts. But I think the traffic study was very beneficial. It gives some real insight into what we're dealing with when people are coming and going. I also think that it is a good segue between single family homes to go straight into townhomes and separate whatever ends up on the west. I don't have a problem with the idea of townhomes. I don't have a problem with the idea of rentals. I do have a problem with only having one access point at this stage, and I think that we may have to come up with a more concrete plan on that west side, not to suggest that you'll have to change what this development is, but that we have to know where those roads are going to lead before we can go forward.
And also, I guess I wasn't clear on where's the parking for those live work units? Sorry, the work units. I wasn't clear where they were supposed to park.
Park behind it.
Behind in the parking spots. I know I see there's some parking spots there. So those would be shared between the residents and those.
Correct.
Units. Okay.
Off the street.
I've pulled up the plan if it's helpful. And I don't know if you want the developer to answer some of the questions from Lisa or myself, but there's a few things that maybe I could clarify on the design and the application at hand.
There's a couple things on the design I wanted to point out. Like for instance, on page 419 in the packet, the side window on the right side, it's in the middle of a wall in the bathroom. So FYI. Anyway, and just the second floor needs a few more windows to break up that large expanse on the sides of some of these buildings, especially at the last unit that they have. Otherwise, it's just really flat and the same, uniform. And then also my other concern was the secondary access as well.
I'm ready to make a motion, and I would make a motion at this time that we deny the application to change the zone.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion, council?
Was the motion for denial?
Motion to deny.
Motion is to deny.
Well, I was just gonna say, did you have any other thoughts in general on the project before we?
My only last concern as well was the whole that they're all rentals, but at the same time, I don't mind having a certain portion of rentals in the city. That's not a big deal, but it's more of a, I don't know.
Because I'm not ready to deny it, but I'm not ready to move forward. So I mean, you guys heard it.
I'm not ready to deny it either. And I do think that this is a very workable plan and that there's a lot of mediation that has occurred already and that can continue to go forward. I know that time is of essence for all developments. I understand that you have a certain amount of time that you need to dig and nail things down. But I do think that we have a real issue with what's happening on that west side for road structure. And also for access points onto, UDOT only gives us so many entrances and cuts. So I'm not at all prepared to deny this, but I would suggest that there's still some time that needs to pass. There's some mediation on design that has to happen, in my opinion, and we have to know what's a more positive idea of what's going on in the roads on the west for the connectors, and as well for traffic flow going west and more entrance from the north. And but I don't think that there's anything wrong with this development plan.
I think that what I'm saying in denial is that it's really not fair to drag this on for months and months. They kind of deserve an answer. And if I'm not ready to move on with it, then because I don't see some of this being resolved for quite some time.
Mayor, we should probably call the question.
Okay, question's been called.
Okay. We have a motion before us to deny this, and this is the end of the discussion of this development. All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Or
Aye.
whatever.
Opposed, nay.
I have, so the motion failed.
Okay. Is there a substitute motion?
I would say motion to table.
Motion to table is a substitute motion. Motion to table, and do we want to itemize the things we'd want remedied, or are we just going to specifically say table?
I mean, I think we've
know
got
that
a.
we can.
What's that?
I mean, can you really put in a motion all the things that you want taken care of?
That's what I'm asking.
That's the question that she's asking before I.
Clarification, can we tell them specifically what we want resolved, or how do we?
The motion previous to this was to deny the rezone change.
Right. Right.
Okay, so if there's something, there's something in opposition to it, it would be to approve the zone and then work out the differences and bring them back to you in a development agreement or a site plan that is to your liking.
Yes, you could do a conditional approval. We try to reserve those for often like, really clerical issues or things that are really minor. And then the alternative is to table, which, they've gotten a lot of feedback, and if there are specific things you'd like them to focus on, you could say that. I don't think it needs to be part of the motion though. Maybe the table's just you'll hear it at another night.
Okay. So I move to table.
Have a
It's already
second?
been moved.
Second, yeah.
I have a motion and a second.
Third.
Third.
You can't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
I'll go with the table, but I agree with Dave that I don't want to string them along.
No, but we've got a
Not
set
fair.
of,
We do this.
For me, it has to be a fairly significant change of the business model. So maybe I just better go with nay.
Okay, so that passes 3-2.
So what are the things that we would, as a matter of communication to the developers, the things I would like to see mitigated would be access points out to main roads, which may depend on Western developments on that plot. We have to have a better idea so that we can do a better job master planning this area. And I've said in the past, I don't believe it's your job to recognize or to know what's going to happen and have a time frame and be able to nail down other people. That's a difficult position to put you in, but it does, as land use authorities, it's on us to master plan a community and a development, and that's a heavy pressure. And so if we piecemeal, I'm not saying that we would change what your development proposal is. I'm saying that we have to know what's coming in order for us to master plan that better.
I mean, that who knows how long that could be? Is that really fair to you?
Well, I guess I'm a little frustrated because we hired arguably the best engineer, state traffic engineer in the state, to come and tell you exactly that none of those intersections fail, even including this on top of it. So that intersection does not fail at all, even for 5 years with nothing going on to the west. So for us to sit and wait for whatever develops on the west on a hopes that that medical center comes through, whatever it may be, right? It's.
I think from where I'm coming from, I don't know that I'm necessarily, I would love to see that play out and see, obviously that's not in your control. I understand that. And I appreciate the traffic study, but again, we've had a few conversations with Public Works that it would be really important for us to have some time to review the traffic study. We had a PowerPoint right now, right?
Sure,
and so,
I understand.
And so I think, Robert, you just saw it right now the first time as well. And so it would behoove us to make sure that it makes sense to us first and foremost. And then second of all, maybe actually first and foremost, is I do want to get a little bit more feedback from a few of the residents who have put in a lot of effort in here, and they're kind of giving us a conflicting report. And so if they're saying one thing and then we have something come in and it basically kind of contradicts that, I know that there's messaging that kind of gets conflicted or confused along the way, but I just do want to do our due diligence to ensure that, because I didn't hear from the citizens particularly that they hated this development or that it can't work. I heard that it could work with some feedback and some consideration.
I think the main issue from the citizens is the traffic issue, which we
Well, and if we
tried to
have
solve.
suggestions for the traffic issue, but we can't remedy all of those, then that impacts this development suggestion. So if I really appreciate the thoroughness of this traffic study, because it really does put a lot of our minds at ease in the majority of the issues. But there are some that if we can't do the bulb, if we can't do some of those things, then it changes what's going to happen. And as we've looked into developments, we're requiring access points for people to leave, come and go from developments all along 1700.
we are.
That's one of the main things we said, we have to have one here, we need one here, we need one here. And at this stage, we have one. And they can come and go out of theirs, but they have to drain out into one road. And I would be much more comfortable if we have an idea of where we're connecting those roads on the west side, and if that's going to be a viable option.
For me, the other thing is on the mixed, you're coming in as a mixed use, And I don't see the value of the mix.
Well, the one
I just need to, I don't know if these are going to be successful.
We don't know.
I would need to see hopefully a better product with better parking. That's not that I'm worried these guys are going to be fighting for the spaces. I just don't think this is a great add to our commercial in this area.
Well, the one piece to think about though is, and I've had conversations with Noah, this does closer align to the ratios that we've requested based on the density, and it also better aligns with the vertical mixed use product that we're trying to really pursue. And that location would abut that property on both directions. It would make sense to me. And Noah, you know, we also talked a little bit about that there is a demand for this type of product in the community. I don't know if you have any feedback for that.
I would love some data on that, because I've been looking for data and I've not found any.
Data on this type, are you talking about the mixed use portion of it?
No,
Pretty much a small square footage.
Yeah, it's like
office
micro
area.
commercial.
It is micro commercial, and
Right.
I've yet to
400
find
square feet.
anybody
The
that
office
really
space.
justifies that.
So there's an existing development in Pleasant Grove. It's called Steeplechase. And you can go in Google Earth and go look at it and see what kind of businesses have located in basically the same product. You have like hair salons and, you know, like maybe somebody with a home occupation that needs like an insurance guy or just kind of needs office. But yeah, it's not is like a retail store. It's not.
It's not
an
even big enough to
office.
be a cafe. You know,
No,
it's-
not a cafe.
It's not something that you really have a dine-in at all. And
But I don't think that's what
It-
that whole
but
intent
that's
is.
not
I
what
don't
The
think it
purpose
needs
is
to
to
be
meet with a
that.
few
And I
clients
also
and-
but
think
without that flexibility, then there's fewer options of what can go there. And we're finding that some of the things that are in micro commercial are now going to home-based business. And we're losing that commercial.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at or I could send you a link in Google Earth and you can kind of see how that played out. It's basically the same thing.
We're
is it
also not
full?
Pleasant
Do you
Grove.
have any idea what their
Mm.
rentals are like?
I haven't driven down there. I've just looked at it in Google Earth, so I don't know what it still is, to be honest. One thing I wanted to, just a point of clarity, just as far as what the process is, since it's a mixed use, you guys said a few times, like, we're not reviewing the design. We actually are reviewing the design
We
right
are.
now.
Exactly.
This is a preliminary plat, development agreement, and rezone kind of all together right now.
And
So
so
now's the
doesn't-
time to look at the elevations and the windows and the,
If we are, then.
yeah.
Okay,
Like that
thank you.
So if you
bathroom
had something
wall.
I
specific,
didn't realize.
Yeah, I just want to make sure this is usable commercial that is going to be a value add to the area.
Absolutely.
Is it just a total disaster to design it to aggregate some of those units as they're on that bottom space there, to combine them to maybe a 1,200 square foot unit for like 3 of them? Or
Those walls are not,
I mean, it's like,
if someone wants 1,200 square feet, they can take out all those walls on below.
So you could turn
can
it
have
into
pass-through.
cafe space if you wanted, or
Absolutely.
larger. That's helpful. And I agree that it doesn't do us any good to continue to pound the table about saying we need this much square footage in commercial space if it's not viable. That'll be shuttered before they even open their doors. And I know how banks work and how much they'll loan. And I know that they give you just enough to fail and never enough to succeed. So you either have to have an immediate base of customers, or it's going to be a huge problem. And so I don't want you to develop this space thinking that we need a specific design for it that isn't viable for people to stay
It has to be a
in
flexible
business.
space. That could be a cafe, that could be a real estate agent, that could be a insurance agent. I just want to make sure that we have a viable product here with parking and things like that will help make it be successful.
well, and it sounds like with the flexibility, that kind of changes that dynamic.
Yeah, if it's flexible, that's great.
Council, I need to be clear in what we have voted.
Okay.
I think we've already voted on a table.
We voted
Tabling.
on a table.
But we're giving them feedback at this point of what we would like to.
And like on the elevations, just, page 426 also has that same bathroom wall right in the middle of the window. So fix those. Second story needs some windows too.
Eric?
Story needs some design elements that make it, and the color scheme is not appealing.
I have a.
She's the design lady.
I have the current landowner, a representative of the current landowner.
Yes, you do.
Is this decision compatible with what you're trying to do?
It is difficult for me to represent all of the ownership interests in this piece. You know, I thought the question was for tonight for it to be, you know, a vote on the land use change.
Right.
And so I felt like that was appropriate, and that if you did move forward with that, you could address a lot of the concerns we're talking about through other applications like site plan and so on.
We won't see it again under the new process.
There will be future refinement to the plan with a site plan. So,
yes,
but you're right. That site plans are seen with planning commission.
Yeah, so we don't see, if we have an issue, we have to take it up now.
It's our shot.
And it's not in a satisfactory.
This is how our mixed use ordinance is written. It's all the cards on the table.
Yeah, if they need to subdivide, you might see like a preliminary plat or something, but not a final plat.
Yeah, that's.
As you know, we've made application on this ourselves several times. We've tried this different route as well. I mean, we've done this several times. So, but again, it's you voted to table it, so we now have to address that as owners and decide how the current contract looks.
Right. Which might mean that the whole project is dead. That's what it might mean.
Well, we voted, so I mean, at this point, we should be moving on to the next item.
Okay. I just wanted to have that on the table too. Thank you. Let's move on. We're at item.
Is this tabled for a month or for 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Thank you.
But we can't, we won't be able to have a vote again until July.
Yeah, so technically tabled for a month.
Technically, yeah.
But we will be discussing it in June.
There won't be a vote in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move forward. 20, proposed ordinance 2021-15, amending the Syracuse City zoning map related to property located at approximately 1998 West and 2700 South.
This application is to change a home occupation into a full-blown industrial operation. Reality, they probably wouldn't scale up too much from what they're doing now, but it is near other residential areas. Currently, his home is right on site, and he has a big warehouse in the back. We talked about this last time in the work session. The applicant's not here. I don't know if he's online or not, but if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this in work session, and my opinion has not changed. I think the dangers lie in what we don't know on this and the potential future use should we rezone and have it, if he decides to move on, and because he's already at capacity or beyond capacity.
Yeah.
So there's a potential for that. So that, I think that's where for me, it still makes most sense to continue looking for amenable locations within the city as best as possible and not allow the rezone.
Do you all feel that way?
I'm of the same opinion. I mean, we have
Yes.
some wonderful flex industrial space coming online, hopefully in the not too distant future. We have a lot of areas for this, but I am very uncomfortable putting an industrial area in the middle of a neighborhood.
Me too.
It seems like you're unified. I'll take a motion to deny.
Motion to deny this property, moving
Okay.
to industrial.
Second by Jordan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Cassie, would you record that one as unanimous? We're on number 21. Noah?
This next item is the project is known as Syracuse West. They ultimately would like to do a PRD townhome development. So 2 stories, 2-car garages at about a density of 9 units per acre. So remember, 12 units is kind of the average. So this is actually would be considered for townhomes at least kind of a lower density townhome. The first step to get there, they do have to change the general plan from commercial. They could have done medium density or high density. They did the high density. The end product will be the same. Remember last time we talked about it, and there was a condition to connect into the parking lot in the park, which would require them to basically build a drive aisle on city property and, you know, probably fix our sprinklers and maybe, I don't know if there's a couple trees and things like that. And so they looked into changing that. They're willing to do that. But they are asking, and maybe I'll let him explain more, but they are asking if, so it currently has 30 units. If they did that, they would like to increase it by 2 units, which is still under the 9 units per acre, but it, you know, they would want to do that in exchange, since that opens it up, since it's not a 150-foot maximum driveway length for fire code. They would punch it through. They would have room to do a couple more units, but that's kind of the only update there. But
Noah, where would those extra units be?
He sent me over a plan today. I could share, put it on the screen if you would like. Let's see here if I can figure out how to do it.
I'm unclear how punching through a road opens up to additional units.
Well, before
That's my question.
I guess
as
I'll wait
well.
to see the plan.
I can show you.
That's why, yeah. And then also how to compensate for those other visitor units or visitor stalls, parking stalls to possibly move them to the other side of the play field, you know, the east side of the play field or something.
Oops. Here it is. Sorry, I had it open, but then it closed. There it is. Okay, so you can see units 31 and 32.
Right there.
I've been talking with the applicant about, because I just saw this today. I actually don't love the location of those units just because it kind of kills that play field.
Yeah.
But they do have, within the setbacks of the PRD, they do have some room where they could probably absorb it elsewhere. But I guess that's a question up to you guys of how big of a deal breaker that is. You know, they're just trying to, I think, balance their costs, the extra costs of adding it. But
Okay.
maybe he can explain more why the reasoning, why they really want the extra 2 units.
Yeah, and really, if we're exchanging what would have been parking for road,
I think they added some more spaces there in the green, in the play field there.
no, there were 3 before. So they had 3 at the end of that road. I'm just saying it's not much longer than what they had before. The question is can it go straight or does it need to be curved in?
Can what go straight?
That connecting road, they have it written as straight. I don't know. I can't not remember what that back parking lot connection could possibly. I believe it needs to curve to the south.
Oh, the way they've drawn it is maybe inaccurate.
Is this by the theater?
Oh, they shifted their plan to line up,
To make it straight, yeah.
to make it straight.
Okay. The one in the packet doesn't show this.
This isn't in the packet because it just literally came over today. Yeah. Yeah.
That was
but
my question
we could look at
where.
the packet one if you want me to pull that one up.
Nope,
But
we got it now.
it's generally the same plan, but they just shifted it slightly so that it would
So it
have a
does go
curve.
down farther than what be parking stalls. Okay. I get
Council,
you.
I'm hearing that the 2 additional units in the park are a killer.
Yeah, that kills it.
All right.
That makes that no longer an amenity.
No longer a playfield.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 units surrounded by parking lot.
Yeah.
I mean, if the issue is they have to have those 2 units to pay for the connection, I'm willing to see if we can't figure out a way to, we can connect our portion that goes through our land. And, I mean,
I don't know if we want to pay for that.
we're looking right here. Sorry. So it's right here. This. If that was punched
Okay.
through, go here, go behind, and move easy.
491 in the
I have a hard time
packet.
justifying that little change requires 2 additional units to compensate.
Yeah, maybe the applicant could explain his reasoning there and.
Do you want to
address
come,
that for us?
want to come and address?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name's Peter Matson, representing Ovation Homes. Appreciate being able to address you this evening. Maybe to jump right to this, as we were talking internally after the Planning Commission review and the council discussion at your last meeting about making that connection, our engineer went and looked at that, and as you spoke about, it didn't really line up very well, and we had a little bit of wiggle room between the 2 fiveplexes and even going to the north side to shift and make that happen. The location of those 2 units is just an idea. We wanted to address the issue of connecting that. Originally, we had looked at doing 32 units because that hit us right at about that 9 units per acre, which is the density limit for this type of project in the PRD zone. But that going over 30 units, the fire marshal was requiring that we have a second access into the site. And so before the planning commission meeting, that's why, we ended up reducing that to 30 units on this concept plan. So as Noah mentioned, we can look at, there's quite a bit of room on the west end of the 2 fiveplexes. Maybe even some space on that east end. Would really like, one of the things we kind of struggle with is we've got this floor plan for these townhomes, all 2-car units, and our square footage is approximately 1,838 square feet. And so the width and the depth of that footprint really works for us. Getting those additional units on the end of some of the existing buildings, we might have to look at going with a little bit narrow unit, or I don't think we really want to go to a single car unit on any of those. So we were just trying to get back to that 9 units to the acre now that that second access is a possibility.
Yeah.
But again, we were just trying to address, the issues that came up with the council and planning commission in those previous discussions. And so this is an idea to address that.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but, because they shifted everything over, they narrowed up the courtyard between the middle units, and that extends the playfield to be actually more square footage there. So it does help some with the playfield.
Big enough playfield to actually do something.
Like,
what's the likelihood that, I think you asked the question, Dave, what's the, did it cost enough to do that road connection to justify 2 units? I know it can do it, but would this project work without those units, just leaving it as is, but, getting that punch out to go straight through?
We need that second access because it's a safety issue. But if it says you have to have these 2 units, or you just can have these 2 units, is kind of the question. Yeah. If you have to have these 2 units to make it work for that connection, it doesn't make any sense.
I actually do appreciate the fact that they are 2-car garage units.
Sure.
And that's what I
large and really nice units. And we wouldn't want to narrow those up. And so that's a good product for our city to have as well.
And I thought the plan worked really nicely with just kind of that adjustment that we were going to work towards getting that punch out. And it was like, oh, this is a really cool project. No-brainer. Yeah, we liked it.
And we are perfectly happy, sticking with that original design. Again, like you mentioned, if we don't kind of shift things to make that connection, it does have that little curve to it.
You know what? If you shift, here's the real question, because you could get some approval really fast. If you can drop those 2 units and leave the road where it is, you'd probably be okay.
But still
I think
connect?
that everybody would probably say yes.
And connect.
But still connect. But still connect.
Yeah, it still connects. But
I think we're all kind of.
But when you add those 2 units, we say, oh, now that you dramatically changed what you have here.
Is it the location of the 2 units or 2 units regardless?
Well, when you describe the extra units, I think then it shifted everything out.
Usability of the amenity.
Yeah, that's exactly it for me too.
Sure.
You sacrifice the appeal of that play field.
Sure, and we certainly understand that, and we like that too. Again, it was something we just wanted to share with you as an idea, and we really appreciate your feedback. But you know, the 30 units and straightening out or going with the curve is something that we're happy to pursue. Moving forward.
Sounds like we're on one page.
Yes,
Yeah, I think what we're saying to you is we would approve this if you had 30 units and the straight road. Just take those 2 units out.
Make that promise.
Curve.
It does look that way.
Curve.
Yeah.
He
It
can't.
does look like you can't make that promise tonight, but you could have gotten approval tonight for that.
Either way.
Well, and that's what's before you is the 30 units.
This is 32 units.
Well, no.
Okay, wait
this
a
is
minute.
just,
Wait a minute.
Our attempt to address
Can we see the packet one again?
the issue. If you look at the packet version,
Packet has no punch out.
Exactly.
Oh, this looks like it's over 300.
But we
But-
need them to have that punch out for safety.
Oh, glory.
That's where you'd get the.
So procedurally, where we are is the general plan. So this isn't even at zoning yet. This is a general plan. So this is where we give input,
Where we say no commercial.
but there's no approvals, so the site plan is not approved.
So they're
It's
not
just-
vested at this point.
No, there's no vesting into the site plans itself. So it would be general plan with feedback, so they can come back with a zoning with a more fleshed out.
We do
So
like
plan.
the product.
Here would be where
Thanks,
I'm at
Paul.
on that one.
I
If
do-
we're just doing the general plan, I don't have a problem changing it for something like we just described, but I'm a little leery of making that change and then having somebody come back with something totally different, because the way you have it laid out without that, what we just talked about would work. But somebody could come back and say, I totally want to do this over. And then I'm going to say, why did we bother to change the zone?
Well, this is a general plan.
Yeah.
Plan map change.
General plan and concept plan is
Yeah.
is what it is. So
Yeah.
sorry, I was kicked out for excessive scrolling.
I do have to say,
I'll pull it up right now.
I thank you so much for being willing to.
Council, it would
talk
appear to
this.
me, just kind of listening, that we're in agreement that we can change the general plan.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, we have to take a vote.
Yeah,
Motion to vote.
so
I'll let you go.
I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
Mr. Mayor, I vote that I motion that we approve ordinance. Let's see here. It is 2021-16 with, yeah, I think that's all we need.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all we need.
Have a second?
Second.
Second by Seth. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Appeared unanimous. Thank you. Cassie, would you record that? You're welcome. Public comment. Is there anyone who is still with us that would like to make any comment? Cresta, would you like to make some comments?
Make one short one really quick that I forgot to before. I just want to say thank you to the residents over in the Monterey Estates for their civility and courteous comments and thoughtful approach. It is refreshing. Thank you.
I do think that we probably owe them a quick explanation, and that is that I saw while we were having that discussion, a lot of hands being raised. That is not an open discussion. And so just with all due respect, we appreciate the input, but that's the public comment period, not in our discussion. So just to clarify so that they don't feel like we rudely ignored them.
Yeah. Anybody, are any of you there on Zoom that would like to address anything other than what we've talked about? If we've already talked about Arrington, we're going to pass. But if you want to talk about drought, maybe we can do that.
We talked about that too.
Or raising
That
pigs.
We're seeing none, so.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll close public comment. Council, let's begin with council reports. And who are you?
I know who I am.
Okay.
Okay. At least that's what I tell my children. I know who you are. So I don't know your name at the moment. Okay, just want to remind everyone about the Miss Syracuse pageant this coming Saturday at 6 p.m. at the Syracuse Arts Academy. It's going to be awesome. And unfortunately, I will be heading out of town for a funeral. So please come and support these wonderful young ladies. It's amazing to see their progress from the time that they apply to when they actually perform, and just the growth that they accomplish, not to mention all of the
Corinne,
benefits from
Shelley put
participating.
tickets for the council in their boxes?
Yes, council, please look, well, I'm not sure if it actually made it into our mailboxes.
Use the digital.
Did you? It's in your box? Okay, so please check your box for tickets to the luncheon and, excuse me, the pageant. Thank you.
Which is at Syracuse High this year.
Oh, is it?
Wait, what?
It's at Syracuse High.
Mayor's more informed than me on it, so go Mayor.
Here we go. Syracuse Community Center for lunch, and then Syracuse High for the pageant.
Right. Okay. Anything else, Corinne? And give your best to your family in Oregon.
No, excuse me?
Give your...
You're saying it's at the high school?
High school.
At the high school this year. Okay, my bad. It's at the high school. There you go, 6 p.m. The police are helping to escort the lovely ladies. They do it every year that they can, and it's awesome. Thank you.
Jordan?
The only things I've had is I've met with the Parks Committee. You all have received my report on that. There will be some items coming. We have another meeting this Wednesday that we'll be going over and meeting with some of the other people we've talked to. It sounds like we're meeting with the Ute League as well as some other interested parties. And I think we'll be revisiting the BMX just to get some additional data for you guys. So yeah, good meeting there. I've also met with the Disaster Preparedness Committee. They are, please watch for their information. They put together fantastic articles in the magazine regularly. It's great information. Keep an eye out for that. And they're also putting together some webinars / meetings to kind of just educate the people, Syracuse, on disaster preparedness, as well as other just life skills that are, we have some talented people on that committee. So we're looking forward to the new people that have just joined, and looking forward to see what they've got.
Hey, Jordan. Lisa?
Okay, we are at the point of collecting the graduate signs, that the proud of our grads that we've had here at City Hall and in Clearfield and at a few of the schools. So if you see those, or if you have them, bring them back here to City Hall so we can store them to be used maybe again. I had yesterday with the communities that care, we put together teacher packets every year. Apparently a bunch of stores will donate a lot of items, and so they're going to be able to help at least 2 schools with a vast amount of teacher supplies and student supplies and incentive gifts. And anyway, we have some very generous donations and contributors to that. So the Communities That Care has been putting that together.
Lisa?
Yeah.
On that, can I just make a plug to remember Davis Connect?
Yes.
They served a big role during the pandemic, and I think will continue to have a major presence, and they're often left out of that kind of consideration, the students and the teachers. And so my wife teaches with Davis Connect, and we're constantly going around looking for those incentives ourselves rather than how it typically kind of rolls out.
We have a bunch.
Oh,
I know.
well, hey,
So
if that's something that we could figure out.
Is Davis Connect in online or what?
Yeah, it's just Davis School District's online
Oh,
school.
okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I had a citizen reach out to me who has had their blue line flags destroyed 3 times, vandalized, ripped off of their flagpole. They would like to know if there is a way that we can put the blue line flags throughout the city, because it is a city supported entity. They also were wondering, they recognized that in Kaysville, a pride flag was vandalized and it was considered a hate crime, and they wondered if having a blue line flag would be considered a hate crime as well. So I wanted to bring that up for discussion or for consideration. Maybe we can have this on a future agenda, as a future agenda item. But I know that they've probably even spoken to the mayor about it. I think they connected with a few people, but those are just some suggestions. And I said I would bring that up. I think it's very, very apropos to discuss those things. So,
Chief, are you seeing a lot of that in the city?
She's the only one that I can think of. I've talked to her twice.
Okay.
I mean, I could totally rational think that's just as much hate as destroying somebody else's flag. So I'd love to see that, but I'm wondering if legally that still qualifies because our police a protected group.
Police are not. They've recently expanded what includes hate crimes. I think it was last year, and I don't, on the top of my head, I can't remember if that includes that. It included a lot of things, including like where you went to college, and so it's may include that. That would enhance it to a Class A, which would go up to the county. So the county would be the ones to make the call on whether to file that.
I mean, I totally agree that it's improper and it is just as much hate, but I don't think we get to decide what a hate crime is my point.
yeah, she wondered if it would be considered that, and I didn't know, but it's a good angle to consider.
Right. Dave?
Big Fish is coming up, which is the musical the Arts Council is putting on. And then you asked me in the last meeting to write a letter that we could agree on as support for a possible business use, but it didn't make it to the agenda. So we are not really deciding to support that, I guess, because I would need that in 2 days. So how do we go about that? Can we? I didn't go anywhere.
But in this meeting, we can direct you to draft it and send it.
Oh.
All of us, we're all here.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we already kind of.
Yeah, I did.
We took a straw
we didn't
poll.
vote
Do we have to vote on it?
Well, I
It's
know I
not
drafted the
agendized.
letter. I wanted to share it, and I thought it would be on the agenda as a resolution or a letter or
Hey, Dave,
something.
when is Big Fish?
I don't think it's something that we need to vote on as far as an opinion, right? As long as-
Okay.
4 or 5 days.
Okay. Is it all week next week they're doing that? Okay. What time do you have in?
They're always open or always at 7.
Okay.
Their events, except for when it's a matinee. They usually do a Saturday matinee. Do we have that date, Cresta?
It would be the 17th, 18th, and 19th. Those will for sure will be at 7 p.m. I'm not sure if they're doing it that night, and then they're also going to kick off Heritage Days on the 21st at 7 p.m. for the
Yep.
first event on Heritage.
Paul, can I ask you?
Thank you for looking that up.
I do quite commonly what Dave has done by surveying the council and see if there's anything offensive or would like to be changed in a letter or some action. I do that all the time. Are we within that same thing here where Dave could develop a letter, ask all those to read it, or ask for edits, and after a period of time there's no edits and no objection to it, to send that letter to the sewer board?
So if you're looking for like an official council action, then you'd want to have it voted upon.
Right.
But if you're wanting to write a letter of support, like as a council member, as the liaison, or as the member of the board,
And we can all sign it individually.
then you could all give individual input. That'd be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be all right. And yeah, if you wanted to have individual council members sign it, you could also do that. But yeah, if you were looking for like an official council statement, then you would want to just have it in
But Dave, why don't you draft that letter? I've seen it. It's great. I don't see any reason to edit it. I don't think any of us do. Why don't you go ahead and send it and sign it, Dave Mon, in behalf of the city council?
Okay.
Because it's an informal thing. It doesn't involve money. It doesn't involve policy.
Nope.
It's just an opinion of 5 people and 6 really with me.
Well, I think the intent is that we support this business in our city, and we want them to recognize that while we host a facility that's a resource, we also hope that they can work with us to have some flexibility with other options.
So sign it in behalf of the mayor and the city council.
Okay.
Okay. Seth?
So the only thing I had, and this is more for Jordan, I've gotten a lot of requests, and I think Cresta has seen some of these too from Syracuse Elementary in regards to they want to explore again looking at a fence on the south side of the campus, which yeah, there's some challenges there, but they've reached out to me a few times, and I've kind of said talk to Jordan as liaison, but my PTA member is my next door neighbor, so I get a lot of that. I kind of push them your way. So
okay, yeah, I've talked to him. I've talked to the administration. Really, yeah.
It just
so we can talk more offline.
Yeah, it just keeps coming back. So,
can I ask one more question? What's the movie going to be during Heritage Days?
It is going to be Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4. All right.
I like that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
It is good.
Brody, do you have anything?
Just to circle back, because we weren't sure. So Councilmember Bingham brought up discussion on placing flags. Is that something you want on the agenda for discussion, or?
Yeah, I'd like to have that up for discussion. She said that they have access. They would pay for all of them. She said, we know that there are flagpoles throughout the city, and we would love to see something like that. I don't know if that's something we can even open the door to.
Yeah.
But with it being a city sponsored, I mean, the police is part of the city.
Lisa?
Yeah.
I remember years ago, maybe the mayor does too, where we actually voted to support
The
that.
chamber.
Yeah.
Chamber did it.
And the city's already okay with hanging them on any pole we want to.
So,
There's also a thin red line.
It's the blue line.
I know, there's also a red line.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Do we open the door to that? If there are other, I mean, that's why. it should be
so my question was just whether the mayor or two council members want to have it on the agenda for discussion.
Put it on the agenda for a work session. I don't think it needs to be long.
Okay.
But in the past, the chamber has provided flags both for red and blue. And if we want to do orange, we'll do orange.
Green.
I'll have a pink one.
I don't have any other further updates.
Okay.
Thanks.
Council, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, council, we're going to move into a redevelopment RDA meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I have a second.
second.
Second by Seth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're here to hold a public hearing regarding adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year as required by Section 17C1-61 of Utah Code annotated in 1953. So I now declare that we're in public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to comment? Either Brody, you on Zoom, or Noah, you on Zoom?
There's nobody left on Zoom.
Anybody here? I now close public hearing. Do you want to discuss this, Brody?
Sure. So this has been presented previously. There is no change. Just a couple of highlights in the RDA budget. There's money set aside to do a study for a new CDRA at 3000 West and West Davis corridor, the highway intersection area. There's also money set aside to put improvements, parking lot improvements to town center for this upcoming year. So,
Okay, thank you. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now adjourned. We call the meeting to order of the MDA.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is adopted. We're holding a public hearing proposing resolution MBA 2102 adopting the annual budget. Is there any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I close public comment. Brody?
Again, no change to this one. This shows money coming from the general fund and public safety impact fee fund over to the MBA so that it can pay the bond for city facilities.
Okay. Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to pay the bills.
Do I have a second? Second by Jordan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous, Cassie.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And my goal was to have us out of here at 9:30.
Aye.
Adjourn again? Or are we good?
We're good.
You didn't call for a vote on the last.
Call for a vote.
All
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Bye.
You made it.
Still 9:30.